Thursday, May 1st, regular school board meeting of the Forest Lake Area Schools to order. Please join us while we recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Member Clerk, will you please take the roll call of attendance?
Sure. Okay. Member Antonsen is here. Member Haglund?
Here.
Member Corcoran?
Here.
Member Christensen?
Here.
Member Castle?
Here.
Member Rebeline?
Here.
Member Tyson is absent.
All right, do we have a motion to approve the meeting agenda?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. Brings us to scheduled and unscheduled visitors. We don't have it itemized here, but we will start with the listening session, then we will move to green cards. Listening session, Member Christensen and Member Hagling.
Yes, we had 12 people, well, more than 12, but 12 people speak today in the listening session. All 12 were speaking regarding the proposed policy changes to the clubs, 507, 1510, and 1801. 1801 is not on the agenda this evening, but just in general discussions, and they were all in support of the clubs, and we had 2 students, I think, at least 2 speak very, powerfully be about the impact of the clubs and how good that was to them throughout their high school years. We also had a community member bring up the community petition that has been going around, which is in specific reference to these policies, and I believe there's 1,200 plus signatures going around. And we had a former board member, Karen Moorhead, speak to talk about the clubs and how the community is proud of our schools and proud of our clubs, and the community, she feels, came out very strongly to keep doing what we're doing and just keep it within the new legal framework that we found out about, but that we need to keep the clubs going. There was a reference to the open meeting law and a couple of questions about the agenda changing. A 5th grade teacher spoke about the transition to the middle school is going very well, in her opinion, and she said that when they did some different tours and the principal came and spoke and the counselors, a lot of the 5th graders were really looking forward to the clubs as a way to meet new people and feel better about being in the school and social time and meeting some new people. So I think that was it. Did you?
Thank you, Member Christensen. Anything to add, Member Hagling?
I'd just add, I think the majority of the people who spoke kind of in favor of the clubs were either teachers or students or former board members. One community member did say that he thought that having to have the clubs reorganized on an annual basis teaches the students valuable organizational and leadership skills. And then again, there was, as Member Christensen said, there was a couple of comments about the agenda being not set for the public to see it prior to the meeting, so that they don't know if they should attend or not, and that we explained to them that there's a lot of moving parts and sometimes it just can't get set until we get here on the board night. So that's all I had.
I would add to that too, that this is a proposed agenda that the chair brings to the board, and it is not officially set until we adopt it officially, so it can change up to that second. An important context to keep in mind. Member Christensen's note about the petition, that's the first I've heard of it. I would be interested to see that. If whoever has that would share that with the board, that would be interesting. That will move us to green cards. So I'll start with my little preamble here, and then we'll get to that. So we feel that public comment is a very important aspect of our community interactions, and as a result have included that opportunity on our agenda this evening. In accordance with our green card procedure, we ask speakers to keep their comments relevant to the agenda item that they would like to speak on. Comments that deviate from the topic are inappropriate and subject to being called out of order by any board member. We also ask that speakers remain respectful and use language that's appropriate to a wide audience, which includes our early childhood students. Remember, addressing the board during a publicly held meeting is a privilege not guaranteed under any statute or constitutional provision. I notice that there are multiple speakers who would like to speak on agenda item 8.18 and 8.19 pertaining to policies outlining student activities. Prior to comment, I'd like to provide some clarification on these policies in response to some of the emails that we've received on this topic. Currently, our student activities operate under policy 507. The proposal before the board is to provide additional framework around this topic to assure adherence with state and federal laws and provide a consistent process for all activities. The proposal policies are based on thoroughly vetted model policies provided by the Minnesota School Boards Association and contain necessary language that does not currently exist in policy 507 to assure the district complies with relevant statutes. Proposed policy 1510 pertains to school-sponsored activities such as the Minnesota State High School League, or various music programs and other curriculum-focused academic opportunities for students. This policy does allow for students to create new activities. Proposed policy 1801 pertains to limited open forum groups primarily covered under the Equal Access Act. This policy is not on tonight's agenda. Instead, it is scheduled for an additional committee review on May 15th. Therefore, comments pertaining to policy 1801 are out of order. I would like to remind board members and commenters alike that this is an opportunity for the public to address the board and is non-interactive. We request that everyone here tonight be respectful of commenters and refrain from making their own comments or applauding to keep things moving. Commenters are given 3 minutes to speak. The clerk will give notification to speakers as their time is expiring, and the chair will strike the gavel once your time has expired. I have shuffled the deck of green cards and will call speakers by first name and last initial. In addition to the speaker, I will specify who is on deck to speak. To keep things moving, please be ready when it is your turn. Member Christensen.
Excuse me, could I do a point of order, I
Yes.
believe? On the cover letter for Student Organizations Policy 507, it does mention 1801 in the cover page. So I do believe that that would be relevant to this evening. It says, the policy committee has reviewed this policy and is presently considering MSBA model policies 510 and 801, which if adopted would replace 507. So in my opinion, if 507 is on the agenda, 1801 is part of that discussion.
If there is no objection, we only have one green card on 1801, and that one also wants to address 1510. So if the board doesn't object, I have no objection to that either. Okay. In that case, we will start with Sean T., and on deck will be Rob R. Sean, welcome.
Hello, good evening, members of the board. First, I'd like to say thank you guys. It's a pretty thankless job that you are away from your families and your hobbies to be here working within the school board and making decisions and trying to do what's best for these kids in these communities. Appreciate it. I want to speak to the boundaries. I was privileged to be part of the team, sitting on the boundary input team, that is, not the design team, but the input team. There was something like 50 of us that met several times. I was really impressed. I went into the process thinking it was going to be a dog and pony show. I still attended. I still tried to give input where I felt I could be helpful. I thought it was going to fall on deaf ears and that the process was already decided. That was so opposite the truth. We were called back. We were asked for input. Exact things that we had proposed. Verbatim was brought over for discussion, and even some of the items that we had brought forth for concerns were actually brought into the map and to the deciding process. It was spearheaded by Dr. Massey and Heather, and I couldn't be more impressed with these two throughout that process. The communication, it was anything but a dog and pony show. It was very upfront and very inclusive and very thoughtful. And I personally felt privileged to be part of that, but more importantly, I was impressed by the leadership that was spearheading that process. I was left with one question, and I'm sure it probably would have been answered had I thought of it then, but I don't know if I am up to speed on, we're making pretty large changes here within sixth graders moving to the middle school and boundary changes. The one I don't follow right now is we're making all these big changes. Dragging it out seems more painful for the public when we can implement this upcoming fall. I don't know if I have enough information to make the decision or to opine on it, but I would like some clarification on that. I know I'm getting close to my time, so I'll end it, but I want to say I tip my cap to Dr. Massey and to Heather for a very open and thoughtful process.
Well, Sean, I'd like to thank you for the work that you've done and the work that everybody on the committee did. You want to talk about a thankless job? Redrawing elementary school boundaries is certainly a thankless job. Typically, this is non-interactive, as I just said, but if it pleases the board, I will address that. We did look at trying to do this in 1 year, and it really came down to administrative bandwidth. Dr. Massey, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a lot of moving parts to move that rapidly, and we didn't feel that we could really do it justice and do it correctly if we tried to do it in 1 year. Anything to add, Dr. Massey?
I would concur. I think the work of assessing and determining the school consolidation piece, Forest Lake and Forest View, was a monumental task that played out throughout the year once the decision was made. The analysis and decision-making around moving sixth grade to the middle school, equally daunting and consuming. To layer on top of that the tedious work of assessing and understanding boundary changes, felt like we would really jeopardize the integrity of the work if we took on all three of those at the same time. So in the interest of giving the due diligence that was necessary to do that work well, it made sense to separate it. But I think you make a valid point in terms of the impact on the community. It does stretch that out. We understand that. But that was a price I recommended in order to make sure we got the job right.
Yeah, it was my preference to bundle it personally, but I think it makes a lot of sense the way we went about it.
Thank you for the explanation. Is this something that's already decided, or is that something that's still potential that you guys may implement it this fall?
I don't think we provide nearly enough runway on May 1st for next year switching schools.
Understood.
Yeah.
I know I'm over my time. I'll
Thank you.
cease the floor here. Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to Rob R., and on deck will be Kate L.
Good evening. My name's Rob Rayfield. I'm from Scandia. My kids went to the school, and I've served on the board here. Tonight, I've come to speak on kind of pertaining to Policy 507 and some of the groups it used to cover. One thing I think is critical in our district is that when a student comes into our schools, that they feel like they're an important part of the school community, and without that feeling that they belong and they're loved here and that they're wanted here, that their academics suffer. As a school district, our primary purpose is academics, but a student cannot learn to their full potential if they don't feel like they belong and feel like they're an active part of the school community. That's why clubs like the GSA, the Black Student Union, and all our affinity groups are so critical for this district, because they take students and they help them feel like they not only belong, but they're cared for and that they're a part of the school, the Forest Lake community, and that they are a ranger. And so that I'm concerned when we start seeing changes to the policies that are around these groups that will end up defunding these groups and the staff support for these groups, that these groups will start to wither on the vine, because they're critical in our district. They're really important for making students feel like they are part of this district. And to me, that is part of the academic mission of these schools. And I know all of us have felt like outsiders at school, and anything we can do to turn that around is critical. And so that's why I'm very concerned, and I want the board really focused on supporting our LGBTQ students, supporting our students of color, making sure that they feel involved, they feel loved, that we care about them, and that they're an active part of the school community, that every student that comes through these doors, that they are a Ranger, and that they are a part of the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Raphael. Kate L., and on deck will be Abigail L.
Hey, I'm Kate Luthner. I had quite a few things to say, so I actually wrote them down to make sure they were concise. So I'd like to begin by recognizing the tremendous effort of the Boundary Adjustment Committee. I'm glad he got to go first because he got to say more about it. As a community member invited to assist with the process, I saw firsthand the administration's commitment, attention to detail, and dedication to navigating a challenging task with thoroughness and integrity. Thank you for your hard work and their service to our community. It was a pleasure to be part of the process. I also want to express my genuine interest in the change management process as we transition sixth grade to the middle school. This is a significant step, one that will affect families, staff, and students across the district. Done right, it can create meaningful opportunities.
That's out of order. Sixth grade transition is not on the agenda this evening.
I guess, yep, that's actually my point, because it is not on the board agenda. That said, I must express deep concern with the board's recent direction regarding policy. While policies are necessary to guide our district, it is troubling to see them being amended to become more restrictive, often disregarding the thoughtful input provided during public policy meetings or previous board discussion. It is frustrating to watch community voices be invited into a room only to be ignored when decisions are made. It raises serious questions about whose voices are truly being heard. The community is growing tired of being told that those who care about clubs, diversity, and inclusions are somehow just a small fringe group, or that those values somehow undermine our schools. That narrative is false and unproductive, and we've had enough. This time, the community acted, and there is a petition with over 1,000 signatures specifically addressing Policy 1510 and 1801. But the larger message is to tell the board to stop ignoring voices of those who believe in a school system that reflects and respects all students. We are not going away. This board is elected to serve all families, not to micromanage our schools or use policy as a tool for ideological control. Let's return to the work of real leadership, building trust, listening with humility, and focusing on the needs of our students, not policies. Thank you.
Thank you. Abigail L., on deck, Susan Y.
Greetings, board members. My name is Abigail Leachild. I'm a 2022 graduate of the Forest Lake Area School District. I'm here also regarding the groups and proposed changes in policies. The first thing I would like to point out is that many of the groups listed in these interest and affinity-based columns could be considered parts of or extensions of the curriculum. There are art curriculum at the high school. There are literature curriculum at the high school, and so on, as well as some of the affinity-based groups could be considered extensions of social studies courses or history courses. I also would like to highlight some of the accomplishments that these groups, specifically Rotary Interact, which I was involved in, had on myself and the community. Rotary Interact has founded and led a military care package drive which has fundraised almost $9,500 and shipped 3,606 pounds of goods to U.S. service members during the holiday season. This was only during my 3 years. They've continued this on, it's in its 6th year. They also have done projects such as the Wounded Warrior Project 5K, where they raised almost $1,200 for wounded veterans, and have participated in the Forest Lake Rotary Winter Pledge, which has fundraised to support survivors of human trafficking. And there are more lists of accomplishments that have been sent to your emails. My point in sharing this is that is the importance of interest clubs. Any student, regardless of age, GPA, or familial support, can join these clubs. Specifically for Rotary Interact, they can volunteer in the community. They don't need to be accepted to NHS for this opportunity. Students can utilize their self-motivation to turn ideas into reality that have a positive impact. This allows students to grow and grow project management abilities, including marketing, public speaking, writing professional emails, networking with the community, and managing finances, all skills that I learned through being a part of Rotary Interact and not from curriculum. Lastly, these groups don't need to be large. Rotary Interact has always been around 15 students, yet as I just explained, the impact they've had has been significant. I would like to end by stating that as school board members, it's your job to support the students of this district, and by creating barriers or eliminating these clubs instead of proposing solutions, you're inventing problems and harming the students of this district. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Abby.
Susan Y. On deck will be Maddie M.
My name is Susan Young, and I'm president of the Forest Lake Rotary. Small but mighty, all right? Our Rotary Interact is just an amazing group. I have two concerns regarding Policy 507. One, if you vote to eliminate that policy tonight without having a full suite of replacement options, there is a danger that you don't have things in place for next year. So I am very concerned about eliminating Policy 507 until you have the things in place that will be a replacement for that. It leaves a void. It's not a good process thing. You don't abandon something until you have a good replacement, typically in business or in government or in school boards. The second thing is I am very concerned as you look at your policies. As I said during the previous session, we're having a requirement that is only student-activated groups. As a student that had trouble trying to make new programs when I was a student, watching my daughter look for programs, kids don't know how to do that. Yes, somebody after I spoke tonight said, well, it's a great way to learn leadership. It's a chicken and the egg thing. And so one of the concerns I have is just being student-led or student-begun, you're creating a gap, and it does limit the breadth of possibilities. Somebody like Rotary would not be able to start an Interact group here because I'm not in the school. And so the other thing I do want to do is let you know what an absolute gem this school district has. We are one of only 3 Rotary Interact groups in the entirety of Rotary District 5960, which covers Minnesota, the Dakotas, and part of Wisconsin. And so we're very proud of our group. They've been internationally recognized, and I certainly hope that they will be able to continue in the future. But having a policy that says every group has to begin anew each year and every group has to be student-led will be a barrier. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. That brings us to Maddie M. On deck will be Mary Beth H. And for the speakers, just a quick reminder, can you please speak clearly into the mic? We have a lot of online viewers as well.
Hi, I'm Maddie McCafferty, and I am a senior at the high school this year. I'm also in student council, SAD, NHS. I'm a bleacher captain, so as you can see, I'm in a lot of clubs, and I could not imagine high school without them. My advisors have supported me in so many ways, and I wouldn't be where I am without them. This year I attended state student council where I won Officer of the Year, and I wouldn't be able to go there without my advisors. And while I was at state, I presented in a small breakout room where I talked about a campaign that I was on this year called Your Words Matter. But we mentioned how hard it is for students at their school to feel involved and to feel supported, and I just kind of brought up how clubs like at our school might be going away. And their immediate response was, why? And that's kind of where I'm at. Why? Our students have had these clubs for so many years, and all of a sudden we're just trying to put them away. I also play softball and basketball, as you can see my little practice uniform. And a lot of girls on softball, I've just kind of brought it up recently, and they didn't realize the impact it would have on our school. One of my biggest takeaways was telling them, hey, weapons of mass destruction, they won't be there next year. You won't see them at football games. And that's just a small thing that so many kids enjoy. I remember sitting at football games, taking videos of them and thinking, wow, this is something really, really cool. And I just can't believe that this won't be here next year. And just having the opportunity to be in these clubs has been so impactful on me. And I can speak for many other students. It's just the only way to get through high school. My best friends I met in these clubs, and taking them away are taking away so many opportunities. student council, we put on many, many small events, and sometimes only a few people show up, but our advisors always say, that's the place where somebody goes. Like, they get to do something. So these clubs, it might be one Thursday after school, but there's a group of students, that's what they're doing. They have a place to go. So I would just like to say, and keep this on your mind, that these clubs are very, very important, not only to our students, to our teachers, to our advisors, and to our parents. So please consider that when you're looking over these policies.
Thank you. Mary Beth H., and on deck is Aaron S.
Good evening, Superintendent Massey and members of the board. My name is Mary Beth Higgins. I'm a counselor over at the middle school, and I've served this district for 25 years. I'm speaking tonight in regards to 8.18 and 8.19. The cover statement says that the policy committee has reviewed this policy and is presently considering the Minnesota School Board Association model policies 1510 and 1801, or you can call it 510 or 801, however you want to call it, which, if adopted, would replace 507. I serve on the policy committee. This proposed change was a surprise to the committee, and its members had lots of questions. So why is this policy being fast-tracked on tonight's agenda when the policy committee members still have lots of questions and concerns that have not yet been addressed or even considered? Why do we have a committee if members' input is disregarded before the policy is moved forward to the board? Model Policy 1510 is on tonight's agenda. Why isn't 1801 listed as well? Why isn't the board being transparent? The board chair stated during the policy committee meeting that he wants to eliminate all student clubs at the middle school. This is not what the MSBA, Minnesota School Board policy states, nor does it recommend. Policy, if you want to call it 1801 or 801, would greatly impact and most likely eliminate the following clubs.
1801 is not on the agenda tonight.
It is on the agenda under 507. So I'll call it 501, I'll call it 801 then.
1801
Chess
is
Club,
not on the agenda.
Kindness Rangers, Strategy Club, Fiber Club, Art
Your
Club,
comments are
Book
out of
Club,
order.
Aviation Club, Rotary Interact, Black Student Union, Latinx, Gay Straight Alliance, Hmong and Asian Culture
your
Club,
comments are out of order.
Open Minds
Please
Club,
stand down.
BIPOC Club, Student
We will
Equity
move on.
Leaders, Fellowship of Christian Athletes and
Aaron
Indigenous Leaders. Thank you very much for your time.
Hello, I am Erin Stegenberg. I am a junior at the high school. This year I have had the opportunity to join Student Council, NHS, and Kindness Rangers, as well as Link. Kindness Rangers is like one of my favorites. Although it's only its second year running and this is the first year that we've really had a lot of activities and a lot of events, it is really enjoyable. This year so far we have done recognition of the special ed teachers, the bus drivers, as well as making candygrams during Valentine's Day for students that don't have resources or don't have all the opportunities in their high school career. With this, I think that the policy should remain because our club has made such a difference and I have made so many friends, and you can see the difference in kids from outside the club to inside the club. They are totally different kids between those two. Even on Student Council and NHS, there are very quiet kids, and then they come into our meetings and they are just loud and they have so much fun and they like to be creative, and you don't see that outside of the club. I just really think that these clubs make a big impact on students and the faculty who run them, and the faculty can make those relationships that are needed in our building so students have a teacher to go to when they need some support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That concludes the green cards that I have this evening, which will bring us to our next agenda item.
We did have one.
Oh, I stand corrected. Thank you, Director Jacobson. Kaylee M. I apologize for the potential oversight there. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, I'm Kaylee Matheny, and I'm a part of multiple clubs, one of which being Open Minds. 2 years ago, I was struggling with a pretty big change. I was in the middle of transitioning back to public school and was feeling unsure of myself. It was really hard and it felt like I wasn't welcomed. I feel weird admitting it, but I wanted to die. Part of that feeling is carried over to me today. This year, I was now struggling with the transition into middle school. Discovering clubs felt like a weight was lifting off my shoulders. With clubs, I was able to find people like me, not ones who judge me. Clubs help people. They help them feel welcomed, safe, and understood. Me and my friends and the friends I've met through clubs will not stand for this. We will not be hushed and we will not be taken apart. And if you want to get rid of them, that's just not okay. I hope you take time to realize that by removing clubs, you're removing a part of people. You're removing the part that makes school feel like a safe space, and I'm not ashamed to admit that it could even cause suicide. Take time to think about your decision, and whatever you do, make it the right one, please.
Thank you, Kaylee. I would ask that one of our counselors please get in touch with Kaylee, make sure everything's okay. Thank you. That does bring us to student report, Forest Lake Area High School RISE. Dr. Massey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like Kari Caldwell, our advisor for our RISE group, to introduce her kids. They do amazing work with our substance abuse program, and they're going to share their experience.
Hi, good evening, School Board. We're excited to share with you the RISE group. This is a group of students who are from the high school, but also represent students at the middle school. I'm the PCN grant coordinator for this grant. Kirsten Layla, who's on maternity leave, is a high school advisor. Maria Swanson and Jen Kovash also advise. I'm going to turn them over to you.
Good evening, school board members. We're the RISE students from Forest Lake High School. My name is Sophia Hesley, and I'm a senior this year.
My name's Elena Braun, and I'm a freshman.
My name is Ethan Magus, and I'm a freshman.
The RISE group was founded to create a positive impact in our school community by promoting healthy, substance-free activities. Through this initiative, we're making a difference by showing that most students are choosing healthy behaviors, and we're here to share how we're helping lead that change.
Through the Positive Community Norms grant, we are working to challenge the way that people perceive the norm to help students choose healthy behaviors versus the real norm.
Did you know students are making healthy and safe choices when it comes to not using substances? And that is some of the data on it.
This data was collected from the 2024 PCN survey. 796 middle school students took it, and 1,147 high school students took it. You can see some of our numbers up there. This question was asked if students reported that they did drink in the past 30 days, of which less than monthly was 94.6%, and monthly or more was 5.4%. Perception is 36.6%, and we are working on closing that gap between perception and actuality.
What have we done?
We did the Ranger VIP tent, which is an experience at a Rangers football game on the field. Homecoming friendship bracelets encouraging a safe homecoming. The bracelet initiative was meant to spread kindness and positive messages among the students.
We took some middle school and high school students to YLA, which is a youth leadership academy. The theme this year was Know Your Worth, and it focused on empowering students to make healthy choices and reduce substance use. And we developed some leadership skills.
End of the school year. Positive things to do over the summer. Hand out free Freezy Pops, spray paint messages on the parking lot, and a paint with Nora.
We have to do this one.
Oh, yeah.
This slide highlights our holiday huddle hangout that we hosted during the holiday season. Students signed up and they got a free t-shirt that got them admission into either the girls basketball, boys basketball, girls hockey, and then we had a cookie decorating station with some coloring sheets.
For Valentine's Day, we gave out suckers that had anti-vape messages.
We bought some of those suckers here today, and they have our positive message on them. You guys can take one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is some of our messaging that we have around the high school, just posters that have our numbers from our survey, and our messages are to speak out and that most students do or don't.
We just had our second annual pickleball event yesterday. This is created to be a community event to promote healthy activities and social connections among students and families. From 3 to 4:30, we had open play for anyone just to come and have fun. Then from 5 to 7, we had round-robin style tournament.
Here are a few pictures from the event.
The RISE students from middle school and high school helped organize the pickleball tournament. We had a great turnout last night with 88 people, I think, and like 36 teams that came and played.
What do we want to do? By continuing to promote substance-free activities and messages, we are changing perception of and reinforcing that healthy choices is the norm in Forest Lake.
Thank you, school board members, for your support. RISE is committed to continuing their work of promoting positive behaviors in the school. That ends our presentation. Do you have any questions?
All right, thank you for coming out. Do we have any questions, comments?
I had a question.
Member Christensen.
You just stated in the pickleball tournament, did you mention middle school? Is this what?
Yeah, this was, our pickleball tournament was an open event for all community members, middle school, high school members. We have a middle school RISE group and a high school RISE group, so both of them were there working on that, and we collaborated with them. So there was a lot of middle schools that showed up.
So you have a middle school RISE group?
Yes, we do.
Wonderful.
Yes.
All right, Member Corcoran.
So how many students are in your group? Did you say that? I might have missed it.
At the high school, I think we have around 40 students,
Wow.
give or take. At the middle school, I think they have a good group too of kids that show up, but
Do you guys get together and do things together? I mean, a pickleball tournament you did. But
yeah, we have meetings on Tuesday mornings, and then when we host the events,
they
we work
really all
together.
work together.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And the middle school, for the YLA, the middle school and high schoolers went together. So,
That's great. Such a big group. That's wonderful. Has it
Yeah.
grown a lot? I mean, has this been around for a while? I mean, how many?
it started 4 or 5 years ago now when we got the grant, because Minnesota or Forest Lake applied for that, and yeah, the club, it's fairly new, but it's grown. I think we've hosted a lot more events, and we're planning more things. So
Well, wonderful. Congratulations. Doing a
Thank
great
you.
job.
Any other questions? Comments?
No, thank you.
Thank you so much for coming out.
Yeah, thank you.
Brings us- All right, Scandia Elementary, Principal Carafel.
Good evening, board members, member chair, Superintendent Massey. We are honored to be here. I am Shannon Carafel, and I'm the proud principal of Scandia Elementary IB World School. Tonight, I have with me Bethany Lickscheitel, who's one of our phenomenal fifth grade teachers, and AJ Hansen, who is our IB coach. He's also a district-wide math curriculum coach. So I'm lucky to have them both here to go through everything that is amazing at Scandia. Let me see, is this the clicker? All right, so tonight our topic is from BizTown to exhibition, so creating tomorrow's leaders. I'm going to get very excited, so just stay with me. I don't know where to aim this. Okay, so first I'll start with what is JA BizTown. So JA BizTown is a place where students make connections between what they learn in class and the real world. It is combining 12 in-class lessons that students do with their teacher and then a capstone 4 to 5 hour field trip to Junior Achievement BizTown, JA BizTown Center, where they run a town and a community for a day. Then there's a final in-class debrief where it kind of all comes together and they really debrief on what they've learned and apply it to real life. The classroom lessons, as you can see, incorporate market economy and free enterprise concepts, along with civic responsibilities, and then about being contributing members of a society. So it's very exciting. This is some of the first looks that our students have into this type of curriculum. It is hands-on and it's immersive, so it's very exciting. So why are we doing the Junior Achievement BizTown? There are so many reasons. This is such an excellent curriculum. But first, we're increasing confidence and leadership skills in all of the Forest Lake area schools' 5th graders. This isn't just something that is specific to Scandia. This is available for all of our schools in 5th grade. It's also part of the newly amended Achievement and Integration Plan. It's under Goal 3, under integration. It's an immersive experience for all and for all abilities. This isn't just for a small group of students, this is for everybody, and it fits everybody. It also covers a nice number of the Minnesota state standards. It is hitting standards in language arts, social studies, math, and then as well as Korean college readiness domains and competencies. It really works to encompass important elements of work readiness, entrepreneurship, financial literacy, providing students with a solid foundation in business, economics, and free enterprise. I'm going to hand it over to Bethany Lickscheider, who taught these lessons, to share a little bit about the lessons and the lesson prep.
Thank you. So before visiting JA BizTown, the in-person experience, students get 4 units addressed above. So the first unit addresses financial literacy, where we look at the role of financial institutions. Students learn about how adults earn, save, and spend their money. We look at the role of banks in our community, and then types of payment, from digital payments on your phone to cash. Kids learn how to write checks and balance a checkbook. The second unit is about community and economy. Students learn about the foundations of citizenship. They learn about the circular flow of community and the flow of money and goods and services within our economy. We learn about free enterprise, and again, looking at how our money flows in and out of banks. The third unit, work and career readiness, students really dive into their own personal interests, and they learn how those interests can connect to a career. They learn job skills and behaviors. We have speed interviews, so they're practicing both being an interviewee and an interviewer. And then we have elections, so they learn about the role of elections in our community, and then they take place in an election. So you'll notice the picture on the top right is students who have decided to be mayoral candidates giving their speeches. The middle picture is a student voting. And the bottom picture is one of my favorites. It is when our student found out that he was going to be the mayor of BizTown. And he was fabulous. The last unit that we address before we go to BizTown is business management, where students work within a business group. They learn about business costs, personnel costs. They actually apply for a business loan. They learn about how to set prices, and then we prepare for our visit. After our visit, we have a debrief, which we will talk more about. So here are some pictures from our experience. So after they have explored the careers that are options at BizTown, they apply and they interview for different careers that they would perform at BizTown. And there are all sorts of career options available. Students are encouraged to dress for success and perform their career for the day. It is an incredibly busy place where students are working within their business and taking breaks and visiting other businesses, visiting the bank, opening checking accounts, setting up savings, and all while learning. One of our students said on the way out, I wish I could have my birthday party here. So you know it's a winner when you can combine real life experiences with standards and students wishing they could have their birthday party there. Our BizTown experience in person is not possible without family members, community members, and professionals who volunteer to run the businesses. So every business has an adult volunteer that's helping students figure out how to fill out their first paycheck, figuring out what their job responsibilities are, and helping guiding those students. It is a great way for our families to be deeply involved in our students' learning.
So one of the ways that, or a few of the ways that we tie it all together, some of these are specific just to Scandia, while others are district-wide. So we have school counselors come into our classrooms and they do lessons. They all have a scope and sequence, and one of the lessons they do is based on careers and career readiness. Students take career interest surveys, they explore different careers, they look at the education or training that might be needed, they look at the outlook, the career specs, so they know if they're choosing a job that they need to move to California for, or if they can stay in Minnesota for that career. They also work on soft skills, and any of those skills that they're going to need in order to interact in a business or in any type of employment situation, and things like interviewing or just being professional in an environment. One of the things that's specific to Scandia, or a couple of things, are we were able to take the whole BizTown experience and replace a couple of historically and maybe beloved experiences or projects that Scandia had that just didn't quite meet state standards anymore. So we were able to incorporate BizTown with what we used to call the Wax Museum. So students still do the research, they still have a gallery walk where they present to community members, to the school, to peers, and to parents, which is very exciting. Another piece is we used to have in 6th grade, there was something, it was another beloved project called Me Books. It was something very specific to 6th grade or specific 6th grade classes, and with 6th grade going to the middle school, we really wanted that keepsake, that memory piece to still be in our school, but how were we going to do that in 5th grade? With BizTown, we will show you in a little bit how that worked out, but there is a project or a piece of it that can be turned into that keepsake, that take-home, let's be real, the mom and dad project that comes out at graduation that gets put in the file for students when they graduate or move on in life. And then the final project creates, a take-home display for learning. We also incorporate the International Baccalaureate program that we have at our school that is cross-curricular and a global perspective and leadership. So AJ is going to talk about that and how it all ties into BizTown, specifically at Scandia as well.
All right, Scandia is one of the only IB school in our district, and so my role there is to kind of coordinate the chaos and facilitate a lot of the things that are happening there. So we run the IB program in conjunction with Minnesota State Standards, which is kind of unique. A lot of IB World schools are all over the world, France, the Philippines, et cetera, right? So the IB actually has its own set of standards that are academically tied, and basically what the purpose of the IB is to make learning transdisciplinary. We want students today to not feel like, oh, I'm in math class today, I'm in social studies, I'm in ELA. That learning to be pulled all throughout the day in similar topics and in similar themes. All that learning is really foundationally based in inquiry, asking questions, finding out the answers, creating a process in which students understand that they can learn things when they don't know them. This is done through a variety of ways, but we have something called key concepts. We have something called burning questions boards, where students are able to ask those questions and they have a foundation or a way to ask those questions. A huge part of what we do at Scandia is called the exhibition. Currently, our 6th graders do the exhibition. It's sort of a capstone project in which 6th graders are leveraging all the skills that they've learned at Scandia Elementary and putting it all into one final end-of-the-year project. And the way that that's put together is we start out by brainstorming what are some ways that we can affect change in not only our community, our school, our world, and they turn those ideas into their own research project in which they kind of look up these things, they're interviewing. What's amazing about the project, it involves every single adult in the school. It is not just something that's unique to the sixth grade. It involves everybody in the school becoming a mentor for these student groups. To pull this off, it takes a lot of work. With the transition of sixth grade to the middle school, we started to scratch our heads and ask questions about how are we going to pull this off at the fifth grade level with all the things that they have going on. So we soft launched this year mixing the exhibition into BizTown, which is really getting at some of those mom and dad projects. We're getting those layered in there. The students are going to research a career of their choice. They're going to embody that career in sort of a wax museum style gallery walk. And their sort of vehicle for that information is going to be a MeBook page called Me When I'm 40. And through the Me When I'm 40 page, they're going to share the learning. Maybe they had to go to school or trade school to get to where they are in their job. They can share about their career, and they can show up to school as what they want to be, which is really awesome. Anything to add?
No, I think you covered it good.
All right. There's a picture of it.
So here are some examples students create both with their BizTown group and independently a 5-page Scandia Gazette newspaper. So these are some work in progress examples of some newspapers that our students are currently working on that we will print and have bound for them. Our exhibition day at school, students will be encouraged to dress for success. They'll be standing around the outside of the gym with their bound newspapers ready to show off, where our community can come in and ask them a variety of questions, both about their BizTown experience and their future aspirations. So we encourage everybody to come and attend and see the amazing things our students are working on.
So this entire experience is really about creating leaders. It's what BizTown is, it's what it does, it's what our additional work with IB is doing. We are giving students a vehicle to apply the things that they are learning to real life skills, to be immersed in it, to live it, to feel it, and to experience it. They're driving their own learning through inquiry. They're having these experiences. They're becoming leaders. They're planning, working as a group, managing their time, working with a mentor, all towards a common goal. And it's phenomenal to see them and watch them do this. And to be a mentor, I know there are many mentors probably in the room. But really, it's about demonstrating leadership and independent skills through their experiences at JA BizTown and the exhibition process. What questions might you have?
All right, thank you. Member Hagelin.
Principal Careful,
Yes.
I'm very pleased to hear how excited you are about it, and even more pleased to hear about how it's tying in all core academics and how well it's going, and it just gives me comfort that as a board we developed this and brought this into the A&I plan so that all students will have access to this, because that sounds great. So
Absolutely. It started at Linwood Elementary and then Scandia Elementary, and then it is such an excellent experience, and I'm very proud and happy to see that you guys have decided to do it across the entire district, because it is such a tremendous learning opportunity for students.
Thank you for your presentation.
Yeah. I attended it with my
Yes.
5th grader, and yeah, it was a very fun experience across the board, and I would totally recommend any parents in here to take their kids if they're going and join on to that.
And it's run by volunteers like
Yeah.
yourself. So it takes, actually we combine schools. So Lytle Lakes and Scandia attended the same day, because it takes that many adults and it takes that many students. It is literally an entire town. And they run, is it like a week simulation in 4 to 5 hours? So they have paychecks, they spend their money, they go to businesses, they run the businesses, they sell their products, they develop their products, and they change things on the fly to make sure that their businesses are viable.
There
It's
wasn't
amazing.
lunch breaks for the adults, so just let me know.
Bring a granola bar.
The true day for a teacher, I suppose.
Well, I love that it gives them an opportunity to learn things that they didn't even know they were interested in. And that's opening their minds for the future. I'd be curious as time goes on if they're going to end up maybe, becoming an accountant like I did. I loved numbers. I didn't know when I was 5th grade, but maybe I would have, and then been an accountant because of that reason. But I'd be curious to see, as you keep track of kids, what they end up doing with their futures.
Well, and I'm actually glad you brought that up, because
Yeah.
one of the things that we would like to continue to tie in at the elementary level are the career exploration things that happen at middle school and high school, and how can we bring that down? So everything is always in development, but how can we have school counselors, the deans, or just different people from the high school eventually coming into the elementaries to have our students explore all of the opportunities that await them, not only at our middle school and high school, but in life in general. It's a great time to explore and start to figure out what you like, where you want to go.
Well, that's a transition of the sixth graders to the middle school, so this is, all good timing for everything, so, thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
I love that idea that you just were talking about. That's great.
Well, all right, thank you for coming in. It was a great presentation.
Thank you.
All right, does anybody have anything for positive happenings? Member
I have
Christensen.
I have a couple of positive happenings. This past weekend, I was able to go to a memorial foundation, the Hunter Hool Memorial Foundation. He graduated in 2016. He went from the high school, and he went to Forest Lake Elementary as a kid. And he was a snowmobile racer, and he died in a snowmobile accident in January 2017. And they just do such phenomenal work. It was unbelievable what they have done. They have had this foundation dinner. It's a dinner and a silent auction, all these things. They've done it for 9 years, and it said the foundation arose out of Hunter's love for racing and strong passion for helping others. Combining these passions, the foundation strives to benefit the community and those in need, and there's pictures of Hunter on the program. Two of the organizations that they raise funds for, one is Community Ed. They'll be on the donation list later in the evening. In the years that they've been doing this, in the past 9 years, they have donated a total of $30,500 to Forest Lake area schools, community education. They have also donated to Rangers, supporting Rangers, in the total donation amount of $15,000. So it is a wonderful event. They do it every year, I believe, in April. Can't say enough about what a great organization that is. Then also this past weekend, there was a prom for our special education students, which includes students that go to our STEP program as well. And Chad Eriksrud, I might be mispronouncing that, he led the committee along with teachers and paras. About 20 staff attended and over 50 students attended. And I spoke to someone this morning, his son is a senior and was there, and his student was so excited and had picked out his outfit and showed me pictures and huge smiles. They just had a wonderful time. And then finally, the concert at Bethel was last Friday night, and just amazing group of talented musicians and our teachers, the choir director. It was an amazing evening. So wonderful time to see all of our talented students and teachers. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Member Christensen. I was very disappointed that I missed Bethel. It must have been the first time in quite a number of years that I missed Bethel. Anybody else have positive happenings? Member Corcoran.
I was just going to say, I think just tonight seeing, I wrote down, all the people coming here tonight to just standing up for what they believe in. It's very powerful and moving for me and for the rest of the board. So I just want to thank you for taking your valuable time and showing up and just really speaking your hearts tonight. So thank you for being here tonight. Appreciate it.
Good.
Thank you, Member Corcoran. Okay, that brings us to reports. Anybody have anything for workshops and conferences? All right, seeing none, we will jump to the City of Forest Lake. Member Christensen.
Yes, on the April 28th meeting of the Forest Lake City Council, there was a very interesting presentation by Paul Peterson from Lakes Area TV, just talking about all of the work that he does. It was interesting. He said that it's kind of through statute or something, they are paid for by people's cable subscriptions, which of course are going down because people are streaming things. So he was talking a lot about how he is trying to do other projects and productions to make up the difference. And he partnered with the high school, I think this was maybe a few years ago, I'm not sure, to put in a studio at the high school and a podcast studio, which is really wonderful for the students to be able to use. And they have also done a lot of sports and music events. They're kind of getting into that more. I know they've done some concerts and things like that. And he said 9,000 viewers watched the home football game this past fall, so I thought that was really neat. There's also a new park being planned. I think it's across from the Chestnut Creek area development at the corner of 213th and Harrow. So there was, sounds like that's going to be a really cool new playground. So that concludes my report. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, if you haven't seen that studio, it's pretty impressive in the high school.
Yeah.
We have so many very unique and opportune spaces for our students. We will stay with Member Christensen for community education.
Yes, community education, the meeting on Monday, April 21st, Member Hagelin was there as well. Mr. McKinnon, the community education director, gave an update. He said that the pool is going to be shut down for annual maintenance May 21st for 10 days. A new spring hockey program is starting for junior rangers, so that was really exciting. And then we had the majority of the meeting was a discussion from Lori Drolson, the youth and adult programs coordinator, talking about all the different things that they're doing, Space Camp, they're going back for the second year, which is very exciting. They brought back the 5th and 6th grade ski trip and ski club, so that was all very exciting. They're adding new disc golf teams. The marching band is continuing to grow, all those things. The community band has 56 people in it. They're partnering with Centennial, this is new this year, to go on a bus trip to Nashville. So that's pretty cool. They're also starting competitive fencing and some other things. So it was a really great meeting. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. Member Hagelin, anything to add?
No, I was, due to family obligations, I showed up late and had to leave a bit early, but I was there for Lori's presentation, and I would say that it is quite impressive of the breadth of the catalog that Community Ed offers, and the Director McKinnon's ability to lead that organization and continue to bring in new interest, and how quickly those classes fill up, and that he's able to run that so efficiently. So I give a lot of credit to Director McKinnon and his staff.
It's impressive. Okay, that brings us to MSBA, and Member Corcoran is going to take over from Member Tyson this evening. Member Corcoran.
Gail couldn't be here tonight, but she asked me to give her MSBA Director update. Gail will be attending the MSBA Board of Directors meeting in St. Peter, Minnesota on May 8th and 9th. The board will be holding interviews and selecting a new president-elect. The president-elect will assume their role in January of 2026 at the Leadership Conference. There will be a financial update and review, and strategic plan overview and updates.
All right, thank you, Member Corcoran. Superintendent's report, Dr. Massey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to begin with Member Christensen's item around the spring showcase at Benson Great Hall on the campus of Bethel University. While it's a spring showcase of our high school kids, top performing groups, it's also truly a showcase of music that begins in kindergarten in this district and works its all the way up through our program. We have a number of music educators in the room tonight. The showcase doesn't happen without incredible talented educators, parents who endure those screechy sounds as kids are learning instruments. But that's a powerful concert, and it's an event that really should make not only our district but our community proud. Today is actually the National and Minnesota Principal Appreciation Day. So I'm going to take advantage of that opportunity to acknowledge the principals that lead our schools throughout the district. We know for a fact that great schools require great educators. That is true. But you don't have a great school without a great, systemic, passionate, skillful principal. And we are gifted in this district to have phenomenal leadership. And it's a real pride of mine to work with the team that we have in this district. We have on May 13th the Hall of Fame induction ceremony. We will induct new members to the Arts and Athletic Hall of Fame as well as the District Hall of Fame. Tanner's Brook at 6 p.m. Please plan to join us. And I'd like to acknowledge the incredible response and service that we received from the Washington County Sheriff's Office in response to a situation that we had at Scandia over the last week or week and a half. So we're just in great debt of gratitude to the sheriff's response, the deputies, and their team at Washington, in the Washington County Sheriff's Office. And that concludes my report.
All right, thank you, Dr. Massey. Yes?
A question for Superintendent. Could you provide us an update with the Achievement Integration Plan?
Sure. The Achievement Integration Plan, the modifications to the goals that were addressed by this board a couple of months ago was submitted to the Minnesota Department of Education. They have reviewed the plan and have indicated back to us that those amendments to the third year of the plan have been accepted by MDE, and we're now able to move forward with programming and implementation for the next school year.
Thank you. Wonderful. That is great news and fresh on the heels of the wonderful BizTown presentation. Very fitting. That does bring us to the consent agenda. Is there any item on the consent agenda that any member would like to have pulled? Member Hagelin.
I'd like to pull item 7.5, please.
Okay, 7.5. Are there any other items that members would like to pull? All right, seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve 7.1 through 7.4.
So moved.
Second. All right, we have a motion and a second. There is no discussion on this, so all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Brings us to item 7.5, grant permission for superintendent to serve as an adjunct instructor at the University of Minnesota fall semester. I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All right, Member Hagelin.
I just wanted to ask Superintendent Massey, we have 2 new board members. This is the first time they'll be seeing this, and probably maybe many people of the community that don't understand what this is for. So if you could just give a little bit of detail as to what your role is and what you'll be teaching during this and why it's on the agenda for us to approve.
I actually appreciate that opportunity. The last time this was on the agenda, the notion was that I was leaving my position to go teach at the U. That is not true. I'm fortunate to have the opportunity to teach the principalship class in the fall. I've been doing that for probably close to 18 years. I just finished with board approval to engage in and teach the superintendent class. That started in midwinter and just concluded here a week ago. So I'll be teaching the principalship class in the fall after it begins at 4:30 and goes to 9 o'clock at night once a week.
All right, thank you. Any more discussion on this item? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, motion carries. Now, for the astute viewer of many of our board meetings, you'll notice that new business is preceding action items, and that is an important distinction this evening because we wanted to accelerate the first reading of elementary school attendance boundary adjustments. Dr. Massey.
Mr. Jacobson, before you sit down, if you could do me a favor, I need the clicker, if you would please, while you're standing, for the slide deck. And then it's Mr. Caldwell, if you can grab the lights on this screen here for me, please. Thank you. We have a series of slides. I say we because Dr. Heather Mueller from TeamWorks will be joining me shortly. Before I begin working through the slide deck related to Very good, thank you. So here we go with our elementary boundary adjustments. And before I get into the slides, I would take us back to the board meetings we had in October as we began and conversation and action around Reimagine 2025. You'll recall that the first significant steps there as we reimagine our district moving forward was the consolidation of Forest Lake and Forest View. With that decision, that work has been underway throughout the year under the leadership of Principal Ernest and Principal Emily Stegmeyer and Director Renberg Eide and the teams and staff at those 2 schools. We are well-positioned to make that transition as we go into the next school year. Under Jason Miller's leadership and the team at the middle school and at our elementary schools, frankly, with sixth grade, our sixth graders next year will begin their school year in the middle school for the first time in our history. So those are two components of Reimagine 2025. You'll recall in that presentation, a third component was to make adjustments to our elementary boundaries to adjust to housing developments and enrollment shifts across the district. So we assembled a pretty substantial team of administrators and district design team members, a robust member of our team of parents, community members, and staff to guide the process through an input process. We'll say more about that in just a minute. This process, as you can imagine, is a fairly significant undertaking for the district, and it was never lost on us that the decisions that we were making and preparing to bring to the board would have impacts on families. And it would impact where many families in our district called their elementary school home, and that was about to change. So we never lost sight of that as we worked our way into this process. But I think it's important, before we get into and reveal the recommended boundary changes, that we spend just a brief amount of time. Joy, are you able to flip slides for me, or? There we go. That we begin with a design change process that speaks to how we're going to do this work. What is going to guide this significant change for the district? Go ahead, Joy. And the guiding change process has three components. It begins with us being clear about our why. Why are we engaging in this work? And while there's a lot of sub-information and detail related to each of these bullets, the work was driven by, number one, to preserve our community-based elementary schools. They are, as we have said many times, an asset to this district. When you think about Scandia Elementary, Wyoming Elementary, Forest Lake Elementary Schools, Columbus, Lino Lakes, and Linwood, those are distinct assets, not only for the district, for the communities in which they reside. Our task was to balance student supports and resources across the district by balancing enrollment across our schools, maximizing efficiencies through this balancing process. So to just create a better sense of efficiency and balance was certainly a key component to this work. We actually established what we would not do in this process. For instance, we would not create boundaries or set boundaries that would create imbalances between buildings, that would serve as a short-term fix and not address the long-term needs of the district. That we would provide ongoing, that we wouldn't create ongoing instability for families through needing to make this change today and again in the near future. We would not be driven by special interests, those being, my interest is keeping my family in this school, or any other special interest that might drive that work, but we look at it objectively to create fairness and equity and balance across the district. And we would do it in an open and transparent process. And then what we would, in the process of what our aim would be to create through this process, and that is to sustain and strengthen, again, our community-based elementary schools, balance resources, again, across the district, and work within the current budgetary constraints and resources that we have within the district. That we wouldn't create boundary changes that would demand different and additional resources in the district. And then to reiterate, to do it in a transparent way and a transparent process. So a quick look at the context driving this work. We know from the hard work we've done over the years to adjust to declining enrollment, this is evidence and proof, if you will, to the factors driving enrollment decline in this district. Since 2010, over the last 15 years, we've had over a 5.5% decline in births in our district. That then yields fewer school-age kids as those families and those kids move forward. Over that same time, 5 to 14-year-olds declined in numbers in our district by 5.4%. That's not a decline of enrollment of those kids. It's a decline of those kids living and residing in our district, leading to declining enrollment. The average median single-family home in our district is now at $423,000. I don't know how young families afford those homes, but that is the median market value for single-family homes in our school district. Since 2010, overall K-12 enrollment in our district has declined 16%. So when you go back a couple of slides and you see the declining birth rate, the declining student age population in our district, that translates to a 16% drop of student enrollment in the last 14, 15 years. That, of course, then creates imbalances in enrollment across our elementary schools. So this slide begins to inform the next slide, which is a graph that shows if housing came to a halt in our district and there was no housing growth in the next 10 years in our district, that we would see a slight decline, or what I would consider steady enrollment, with the increase in birth rates. A couple slides ago, I think I skipped over a note there that in the next 10 years, birth rates in our district is projected to increase by 2%. That's the first time I have made that statement in my 8 years as superintendent, and frankly, going back to my time at the high school, that we're beginning to turn a corner where we're expecting to see birth rates incline and resident school-age kids increase in our school district. So with that in mind, enrollment would begin to stabilize, and we would begin to turn the corner from declining enrollment to steady enrollment. When we factor through the analysis done by TeamWorks, the housing growth projected in the next 10 years. So the housing growth, when we talk to the developers in each of our cities, that they're expecting, not housing growth that they would project in the years to come, but housing growth, housing starts that are on the books and beginning to start, we would see a 5.7% increase in enrollment with housing that is likely to take place in our district in the next 10 years. That's a 500 student increase over the next 10 years. When we talk to the developers and city managers in our respective communities, and they would tell us that given the potential growth, housing growth in their communities, when housing comes with that potential growth, we would see an increase when that takes place of an additional 1,000 kids in our district, or an increase of close to 17% in enrollment. That then leads us to this graph. I share this slide not for you to read the numbers, but to illustrate across that green line on the bottom, that's our steady enrollment if there's no housing growth. The blue line across the middle with that vertical line representing today. To the right of that would be the next 10 years. You can see the projected growth with expected housing growth that's taking place today, shovels in the ground or blueprints in the city halls ready to go. That's the blue line. The gold line or the yellow line, the top line, would be land is earmarked. Developers are beginning to have conversations with cities, and when backhoes and excavators and builders begin to show up and build homes, we'll see that yellow line over the next 10 years. That's the close to 17% student enrollment increase. So with that, we I think would be remiss if we didn't begin to plan for this growth and make adjustments to enrollment with 6th grade now at the middle school, one less elementary school on our books, to shift where enrollment is and with the different schools that our resident families attend. This is a picture of our current boundaries. I want you to keep this in mind as we move forward, because in just a moment you're going to see our recommended changes. You might look at that and wonder, who drew these lines? And what I would say is these lines were drawn 15, 16, 17 years ago to account for and adjust for growth and development at that time. And in an interest not to divide neighborhoods, which would be a straight line, they create lines that capture current neighborhoods without splitting neighborhoods. So that's where these strange lines come from. So we weren't driven to simply create nice, neat lines on a map, but to capture neighborhoods and balance enrollment for our district as we move forward. This is our current boundaries with an overlay of current housing projects taking place in the district. You'll notice in Scandia, to the right, not a lot of growth. You'll notice up in Linwood, not a lot of growth. You'll notice in the Columbus area, in the middle, left middle to the west of 35, not a lot of housing growth. When you look down to Lino Lakes, especially the southwest corner of Lino Lakes, dramatic growth. You look at Forest Lake, the city of Forest Lake to the south, Hugo, our southern boundary working its way north, dramatic growth. This was incredibly valuable data for our team to analyze as we began to consider changes to our elementary boundaries. You won't see on here the tool or the specific maps that we worked with, but we worked with maps that had actual pins for houses with kids in them. So we could see if we move the line from here to here, what impact that would have on enrollment with the particular school that would be impacted by that change. So with that, I am going to invite Dr. Heather Mueller to take us through the next number of slides, if you would please, and I can flip if you want, or you can simply indicate that on the screen there.
I can just talk through it if that's okay. Thank you, Superintendent Massey and board members, for having me here. I do have to say that working with your team, not only the design team of Superintendent Massey, thank you, and your administrators, but also your input team, was remarkable. And it was really clear that the first place that everyone started was first and foremost with students and community, and that doesn't happen everywhere. And so as we walk through these next pieces, I think it will be reinforced how I think fortunate you are for the community that you do have, the community of administrators and leaders that you have, as well as people who are really interested in doing what's in the best interest of students and families and community. So I'm really grateful for the opportunity to have been able to work with them. As we look at what our process really lays out, is we walk in it really in three places. First and foremost, we need to know is that guiding change, which Dr. Massey walked through, is why are we doing this? If a leader, if a school board, if a superintendent is not crystal clear on what the current reality is and what you're looking for, usually we don't want to get involved, because that usually spells out some trouble, not only for the administrative team, but also for the community, because they don't understand why you're doing this. What we know is that in every community, elementary, middle, and high school, they love the school that they go to. And even though every other school is as good as that school, it is never going to be as good, right? And so because of that, it's a really thoughtful process. And so to be able to know where you're at and where you want to go, you have to be crystal clear in that, because you have to have the courage to make some very difficult decisions. In addition, we walk through how are we going to make this decision, and what is the sequence for us to be able to do that. Ultimately, the decision lies with the school board. Right? This is what the recommendation is, and if you said yes to this, then that's how that would move forward. If you said no, then it would be a readjustment. right? Ultimately, you all make that decision, but the teams that made this recommendation were a design team and an input team, and we'll talk a little bit more about how they came to these decisions. And then finally, looking at it from a whole systems view, we recognize that in every single school district, in every community, there's the resources that we have available, there's the culture of the school district, and then there's also really thinking about the structure of how it is that so you're moving from a K-6 to a K-5, from a 6 to 8 to a 5, right? So all of those things make a difference. And so being really clear on what the systems are and what the culture is. I think that when we talked a little bit about the first thing that people wanted to have in a guiding change is to make sure that our community still stayed community schools and neighborhood schools. I think the input team, actually I know the input team, their first worry was that there was going to be no commitment to that. They thought for certain that that would be the first thing that goes. And I think that what you heard from, like you had a couple of members who came and talked, that was one of the things that they appreciated after the very first one, is they realized that when it says that there is a commitment to community schools, there is actually a commitment to community schools. And so the words are reflected in the actions. What we do is really a series of things. We think about it really from a down and in and an up and out process. We use that input team to take what the design team has created. We don't need input team members, schools, community members, staff, and into the weeds of all of the different pieces. We need the experts in the field who are doing this work in your schools to be able to say, this is how we think you can go, this is what the impact could look like by taking a look at all of the different map versions. And so you have that, and then you have the input team who can look at that from a very objective point of view. And that input team was actually asked to do something very difficult, is that as they're looking at some of those maps, they are the people who are going to be impacted. They know that their house is they're moving from one school to another, and they have to be able to say, you know what, that's really actually better for the entirety of the community, so let's do that, right? It's not about you as an individual, and every input team member had to actually agree to walk in and understand that that was the basis that they were doing this work. It's not about them as an individual, it really is about what's in the best interest of our students, our families, and communities. And so they were able to do that, which is how you got to having a map to this version tonight. And so we have a whole series of things that we're able to provide with data sets, so that I think your design team members, your administrators would tell you that the amount of data that they poured over consistently is sometimes really overwhelming. But we feel like if you do not know your current data and you don't have a sense of the projections, you are going to be making a mistake along the way. And we want to make sure that when you make a change in a boundary, you're not going to have to go back and do it again in 2 years, a year, 3 years, right? That this should be something that can stand the test of time. Now, it's possible in 15 years, 10 years, that there will be growth or changes, and then it would have to be revisited. But hopefully then, because of the data, because of the projections, they are really just small tweaks that would need to be made versus ginormous overhauls. And so when we look at the data, just a couple of, just really highlights all of the different pieces of data that we ask your team, your design team, to look at and that we provide, so that way all of these decisions can be made. And like we said, it is a lot of information, but if you have had low birth rates or declining birth rates and now you are going to have an increase in those birth rates, that's important to know. If you are going to see an increase in school-age children, that's going to be important to know. It's going to have an impact all the way across. It's also important to know what is your declining demographics and what is that in looking at your aging populations. And then thinking about, like, again, what is your market share analysis? How many students do you get that live in this community, that go to your community? And then what is your survival cohort? Once you get them into your schools, do they stay? And actually, on a comparative basis, when we look at your survival cohort, once you get students into your schools, they stay at a higher rate than other communities. And so already Dr. Massey has talked through with a guiding change document walked through, which is like what are our not hows and what are our desired outcomes. And so every time that we sat down with the design team, this is what they used as their frame of reference. When we sat down with the input team, this is what we used as their frame of reference, that we cannot create inequities in populations. We cannot have one school so much more bigger than another school. You also have to make sure that it is a really transparent process. And so this is the number of meetings, just to highlight how this went. It's important to know that your design team met 8, ultimately 9 times to be able to walk through, and you'll see that those are the maps, and there are maps within maps within maps that are bundled over here. And that's been, the very first one was to say, like, this is what your current boundary looks like. If you could do anything, what would you do? They drew that out, right, created march all over it. We took it back. Our team then used that information, created those lines, and said, this is what your enrollment would look like in each of those schools if you did that. So now what are you going to do, right? And so you went back and you fixed and you fixed and you honed and you honed. They agreed at some point to take 5F2. You're going to see a whole series of numbers here, but they do align to the input team, and that's where they had the opportunity to look at what were all of the other map versions, so that they knew that something else actually existed, and then this is what we're looking at. They gave feedback. We took that feedback and in 2 other meetings created some additional versions of those maps and said, we think we're closer to what the input team had said. Let's take that back. We brought that back to that team. They said, pretty darn close. We think we can get a little better. Design team said, yep, we agree. They made one more adjustment. We brought the input team back. Actually, it was really, originally we had designed it so there were only going to be 2 input team meetings, but because, right, they were so close and they were really engaged in the process, it was important for the design team to take this back to them one more time and for them to say, yes, that we believe is the right thing to take forward to the board.
And Dr.
so,
Mueller,
yes.
if I can, you might recall, as we began our first input team meeting, we had what we thought was a pretty good map.
Yeah.
And we put it up. We knew it was not perfect. We put it up thinking we'll get a couple of modifications. And I remember sharing with the input team of 50 members with parents and community members, a couple we heard from tonight, and I said, these lines won't work. If we go with this, we are in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the best we have so far. We need your help. And we meant that. Mm-hmm. And they provided some really clear, don't do this, and you might want to consider this. We took that back as a design team, put it into action, brought it back to the input team, and they were right. It made our maps better. And I think that's what Sean Thomas spoke to tonight, that it wasn't a dog and pony show. It wasn't a canned process. And they were, again, super valuable in the process.
And I think that was what allowed them to decide, and you didn't lose people. 50 people came the first time, 50 people came the second time, about 45 came the third time. That actually shows, right, that they believed that they were making an impact and that their contributions mattered. And so just really appreciated their work. Throughout the process and with the input teams, we always asked a couple of questions, right? And so how we kind of walked it through is we gave them a chance to, in the very first and second input team, is to look at all the map versions. This didn't make it to you, this didn't make it to you, this didn't make it to you, but this one did, right? We already know that it's not great, it's not going to work, but this one is actually better than these 4. So take a look at them, tell us what you think. And we ask for very specific, what are the strengths, what are the areas that we need to improve, and what are some ideas, right? You can't just tell us it's a problem and then not have a solution. Tell us what you think you might be able to do about that. So we walked through, we were able to use that information and came back, and again, the design team worked. In our third session, we asked a different question. We knew that we had pretty much honed in on what exactly the input team had said. It aligned with what was directly in the guiding change document, and we said to them, based on what you know the guiding change document is, does it align to that? And do we go outside of that in any way? And so we wanted to get that information from them as well. In the first session, when we looked at what the very first set of maps that they looked at, this is what they identified as the areas of strength, their areas of concern, and what some of their ideas are. And it was as minute in some ways as there is a line on Broadway that needs to move up to 8. Right? Right? That's why, right? I'm just making sure. Someone's going to get those lines wrong. But it was like, if you do that, then this is what you get. Huh? Really good point. Right? It was that minute in detail that people were able to give their feedback, and it helped a bunch. In the second one, right, we're getting a little bit closer. These are the areas of strength, the areas of concern, and then some ideas on how we want to do that. And there was some conversation then also about what are we going to do about Spanish immersion and how might we think about programmatic changes and make that a little bit more efficient, which also aligns with what was part of the guiding change document. And then in the third, right, the question is, does the model is the 10F2-2, that's what you're is going to see, does that meet the parameters? Out of all of the groups, 5 out of 6 said yes, 1 said almost, and they had a note. Are there any deviations? Columbus has numbers that are low, and you're going to see that, and there are reasons for that, and we'll be able to talk about that in a minute. And then if there are any deviations or violations, what are some of the things that we can do? Now, some of them we were able to make adjustments to, and the team did come back one more time after this third version and just, again, make the minutest of details to make sure that the lines didn't split a neighborhood, didn't go down the middle of a road, so this person was going here, this person right, was really trying to be very thoughtful about how that was going to look. And so ultimately, this is what the recommendation looks like. And I'll give you a minute to look.
Dr. Mueller, really quick,
Yes.
while we're digesting this map,
Yeah.
can I ask a quick question?
For sure.
On the one slide there, I counted 28 maps. Would you say that's an accurate count, or were there many more that maybe didn't get added to the presentation? Because that's quite the pile over there.
Yeah, they're rolled really tightly. I think there probably are a little more than 28, but roughly, I'd say roughly 28 to 30.
Well, that's impressive. I think that speaks to the work that this committee did.
Uh-huh.
Because when you have 50 people debating over 28 maps or 35 maps, that's pretty significant.
Yeah, it's more realistic if we settle on 10F 2.2.
Yeah.
There's probably, for each of the previous numbers, 4 to 5 maps, iterations of each of those numbers. So we're
50.
It's a high number.
There was like a 10 A, B, C, D, E, and F, and then it was an F2, and then it was an F2.1, and then an F2.2, and that's how that went.
Oh, well, we're talking 50 or more.
Yeah.
That's just, it's impressive.
Yeah.
Well, when you get that many people to agree, that also is impressive.
It was a great team.
Yeah.
So I think a couple of things that are important to note, and Dr. Massey, you can probably speak to this as well, is that there are really purposeful decisions that were made, right? When you look at the bottom of where you see like Forest View, Forest Lake, where your south line is, we know that there's going to be a lot of building in that area because you see the green. We know that that is a distinct possibility. That makes a really easy way for people to come up and go straight up into that area. Again, recognizing that Lino Lakes is going to need to be a little bit smaller because you're going to have some people who are coming into and projects that are starting to be built in that area. And so really trying to, again, balance out not only what do we need now, but what are we going to need 5 years from now, 10 years from now, so that, again, we're being really thoughtful about when people commit to their schools, they're committing to their schools. As we look at that, the other thing that we wanted to make sure is that it really moves a couple of different things. One, it takes effect in 26-27. I think the second thing is that is important to note is that all language immersion students would then move to Forest View. Intra-district transfer students, so that means students that live in one area that go to another school, like if they live in Lino and they decide to go to Scandia, right? And students who are outside of the district that decide to come into Forest Lake, they would still be able to go to their home school. So we figured in those numbers as well. Now, I want to be clear, what we cannot project is if their family's going to decide to continue to do that. We can't say that for sure. We can't say that if they have an infant now that they're not just going to say, well, let our 5-year-old finish this, but we're going to move them to this. We aren't going to be able to project exactly what they choose, but at least we have a sense of what that's going to look like. It would impact roughly 23% of your current K through 5 students. And it really is looking at, again, what we were doing is if all of the housing was, we were going to distribute the housing pretty evenly over the next 10 years, this is what that projection would look like. We also wanted to make sure, again, as we are looking at demographic data, that we were thoughtful about any special needs that might occur and how we might be able to provide those resources. And so, again, we're able to look at that across the board as well for our current K-5 students.
So on this chart, Heather?
Yes, I'll go back.
If you look across the top, you'll see projected low enrollment. If we were to have the reality of the blue and the yellow line play out in each of these communities, that'll be the third line. The second line is a really important number to pay attention to, even more so than the total enrollment at each school, because not each school has the same footprint, the same number of classrooms, the same capacity. So the second line is a percent of capacity, which is a much more relevant line. And we can get into more detail here in a little bit, but as Dr. Mueller pointed out, you instantly might realize Columbus looks kind of low. And we can speak to that. And then all the different other variable pieces that we just allowed to be informative in the background, as we were committed not to create imbalances moving forward. If we have a school with many more English learners than any other school, what implication might that have for services? And how might we account for that, or at least have conversation around creating balance where we might be able to do so?
And so this is what, when we asked also in the very last message from the input team, what did they want to make sure that the community understood? Because that's 50 people representing an entire community, and actually 5 communities, right, who are coming in and having these conversations. And so they really wanted to make sure that what the community knew is that the input team was grateful that the design team listened and was actually thoughtful regarding their feedback from the input team, and it was a very positive process, that there were a lot of different stakeholder groups involved in the process, and that they didn't just move the edges, they really dug deep into this process, and that it was done with the thought that we are all Rangers and that we want the best balance for our schools and for our district. And I think that actually really reflects I think the mentality of your input team and your design team. They also talked a little bit about how it was that it's not an easy, right? There's a lot of moving pieces and impact, and it was a very thorough and thoughtful process. They liked the size, the makeup, the diversity of the input team, and they felt like there was a lot of trust that was built in this process. Again, what was said on paper actually happened in real words and in real life, and so it's nice to see actions reflect words. And I'll have to give it back to you.
Yeah, so we've already met those first milestones, and here we are May 1st with the presentation to the school board. We are scheduled to hold open house sessions on Thursday next week, May 8th at 6 p.m. in the High School Media Center, and then the following Monday, May 12th at 5 p.m. in the High School Media Center. Not so much a presentation like we're doing here, but putting maps on the wall, having maps on the screen, allowing the community to come in, look at where their house is, or look at the numbers in terms of how things balance out. Design team members will be there, and family members, parents can ask questions and offer thoughts and concerns if they have them. So an opportunity for direct dialogue with families. Beginning tonight, following the meeting, the website with a Q&A, with these maps, with background information, will go live starting tonight. We also have a letter that will be sent electronically to families through Blackboard following this meeting with the changes and an invitation to attend these meetings. And then we will have further conversation as we get into the start of next year, as families plan for 26-27. What does specific communication look like for families who are in that 23% of our families who are impacted by these changes? How do we engage with them? How do principals engage with them around, we are welcoming you to our new school, and creating those events for families? So that'll be the work as we work our way through the summer and into the start of next school year. Same kind of timeline built here graphically, again with the start in the 26-27 school year. Those are our slides and the presentation. I would be shocked if there aren't questions.
Who would like to kick us off with questions or comments? All right, I guess people are being shy, so I'll jump in first. First of all, I think on behalf of the board, I can say thank you to the input team, the design team, all the hours that were spent. As board chair, one of the privileges I had throughout this process was I got to see maps, and I'm a data guy, I'm an analytical guy. I wanted to get in there with my pen and start marking it up, but it took some restraint on my side to look at it, consume it, step back and say, yeah, I can see how you have a little bit more work to do. I'm gonna get hands off, because it's not something that the 7 of us can do in an effective manner. It really takes a team like the one that you guys brought to the table, and I think I can speak for all of us when I say we really appreciate that, because this is a really big deal, and when you affect 23% of our student body with the projected lines, that it's something we want to get right. One of the things that I noticed when I looked at this, and I crunched the data, and I see the high projection for Forest View Elementary is like 98%. And when you throw in immersion, that gets me excited. Because that means we can really double down our efforts on immersion, and we can bring Forest Lake Elementary back online as a dedicated immersion building. And I know I'm getting way ahead of myself here, but with that yellow line especially, I see so much growth opportunity and potential, and I like that this design takes that into account. So I'm really liking what I'm seeing here. One of the things that we didn't talk about, but I know we discussed it as a board for approximately the last year or so, was the transition of the elementary school models and mascots as part of this effort that we would move to all Rangers. And I know we haven't talked about it tonight, but I know I have a desire to implement that in the motion that will follow here in about a month after we go through the first reading. So I don't know if that's still on the table, but I'd like to propose that it is if it's not. I did have one question, and then I promised to stop rambling on and open it up to the rest of the board members here. But you did mention that Columbus is a little low. You had some thoughts on that, and did we cover that, or can you add a little color to that?
Yeah. Do you want to go ahead and start, and I'll back you up?
To your point around Forest Lake and Forest View, and then I'll get to the question regarding Columbus. You'll see if you can imagine an alleyway from the south up into Forest Lake. So we're keeping the attendance boundary all the way down to the southern border going to Forest Lake. That's a bit of a change because currently the southern part of that area currently goes to Lino Lakes. But we've got the relief valve in the future with Forest Lake Elementary there. By bringing immersion to Forest View, it allows us to, in a sense, double the program. Currently, we're one section, one classroom immersion at Lino Lakes and at Forest View, Forest Lake. That's hard from a equitable standpoint because 15 kids is a classroom and 36 is a classroom. And it creates great disparity and imbalances. When you've got greater numbers, you can create greater balance. We are proud of our immersion program. Our immersion program is not partial immersion, but it's immersion plus by design, meaning that the early literacy skills are taught in English. We think that is an asset and a strength of our program over the charter school immersion option in Forest Lake, which is 100% immersion. So families would have different options and different choices with respect to immersion by this program, and having it central to our district, we think is an asset to grow the program and an opportunity to grow the program. And as housing growth and enrollment growth increases Forest Lake to the south, Lino Lakes and Hugo to the north, we will be able to capture that enrollment into Forest Lake, and if necessary or when that time comes, reopen Forest Lake Elementary either as another elementary or an immersion school. Yes, I think we got the cart ahead of the horse, but we certainly have been thinking about, does this provide that opportunity? And it certainly does. Back to Columbus real quickly. The Columbus enrollment is about 61% of capacity. Columbus has our greatest in-district amount of transfer. The numbers that you see capture today's open enrollment to Columbus, but it doesn't have the ability through the tool to count for 5 years from now what happens in kindergarten or first grade. We can only account for what's there today. So if that trend continues, enrollment at Columbus continues to grow. So we think that there's that opportunity. We also think that the northern part of Forest Lake Broadway area to the north, currently slated for Forest Lake, Forest View, a great deal of discussion around that line, Broadway. We had iterations where north of Broadway was going to go to Wyoming. The input team in particular said that would be a mistake. It's too close to Forest Lake, and we think they're right. So we moved that line further to the north, as you can see here. But there may be families there that choose to go to Columbus, and we could decide to provide options either way and provide transportation based on the way transportation works. This model gives us that flexibility to adjust transportation to account for enrollment in some of those high-density areas.
And I think the other piece is that Columbus is situated in a space where if, because the two areas that are going to be really getting some growth would be Lino Lakes and Forest View, Forest Lake area, if for some reason they boom, even beyond expectation, it takes just a small sliver of a change of a line one direction, right, either to the east or to the south, to actually bring more students into Columbus. So it gives actually a little breathing room as well, that if either of those two spaces really start to grow beyond even projections, it doesn't take a whole lot to make an adjustment to that. It just takes moving a line a little bit to the east or a little bit to the south.
Wonderful. Thank you. I think that point that you made last there just shows how much thought was put into this model, where you're looking at it going, gosh, a small tweak right here would provide a relief valve. And I do recall Member Hagman talking a lot about that, kind of that gray area where he wanted to be able to make adjustments in the future should something occur that we didn't anticipate. And that feels a lot like that suggestion. Any other questions, comments? Member Corcoran.
I just wanted to say I like the immersion. I know we discussed that. I think that was a great idea, just because it was a bigger group of students that can be brought there. My big question is about busing too. Is this, I know that's a big, huge piece. Transportation is so important. Is this going to impact like having to have additional busing, bus routes? Or I mean, you guys haven't analyzed it that far yet?
We actually accounted for that. I don't know that I would say that we analyzed that or built that model, but our transportation router was part of our design team. So she was invaluable to say, now that you can't get a bus there without driving another 15 miles around lakes. And that was really helpful. We had design team members who grew up in Forest Lake who were able to say, there isn't a road there. You can't get in there and out without going all the way around, and the Stormy Irish, our router, was able to confirm that is absolutely true. So we were down to that level of detail with the 20 school-age kids in this pocket. There was a time where we had that pocket in Forest Lake going to Wyoming, I can't recall. At any rate, it didn't work because of how the busing would work. So yes, we had a lot of conversation about how the busing would work, and we were really clear not to create a map that needed 5 additional buses at 70,000 plus apiece.
Right.
So trying to make it work within the system that we have in place.
And what we have existing for
Yes,
bus routes?
that's right.
Well, that's great, because we've worked so hard to eliminate some.
That's right.
To add them back.
That's right.
So, and I suppose you dreamed about this when you would wake up.
You see lines and numbers in your brain.
Everything.
Yes.
But, no, and I think, I said I was part of the initial one, like, it was like 17, 18, whatever it was, 17 years ago. And this was not done to this level. No way it was done to this level. And I appreciate all the time and effort that went in, because it is people's families. I mean, they're very tied to their elementary school. And when they closed Forest Lake, that was tough on me, because my kids went there. So the possibility of that maybe someday reopening is kind of exciting too. So, never know. But thank you. Great presentation.
Member Christensen.
I'd just like to say I really appreciate how you said that this process built a lot of trust in the community, and that there was a lot of transparency throughout this whole process. I think that is really important, and I think I mentioned it before, but Chair Brambolina, myself, and Dr. Massey, we were at the meeting with the mayors and the city administrators and of the communities that make up Forest Lake area schools, and they were so complimentary to have this information out ahead of them. They were there was reference to a nearby school district that did something, similar, and it just didn't go very well at all. So just to hear that this process has built a lot of trust, and the 2 people that spoke on the green card just saying what a great process it was. I think that speaks really highly of our superintendent, of all the staff, and of the school board too. I mean, that's what we want. We want to build up trust and transparency. So I think thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
Member Castle.
So you're talking about keeping the neighborhoods together. How would that be affected with moving that line you were talking about, being able to move? Would that incorporate all the neighborhoods so that wouldn't interrupt those?
Yeah, I think that when if and when you get to that, may have to make that decision, right? That this side goes to here and this side goes to here. That is going to be dependent on, again, how full and what capacities your buildings are at. And I think that's, again, going to continue to be part of your guiding change, right, process, is that you're going to do the very best that you can with keeping like your commitments to your communities and, right, being as open to making as many adjustments as you need in order to better serve your students and staff and families.
And maybe a way to answer that question, if you look at just the southern part of the Forest Lake area, there's that carve-out with a reddish, pinkish zone there. That's a upcoming housing development with 400 homes. We've encapsulated that, and that area will go to Scandia. It doesn't make a lot of sense that we would carve that out, but those are new families.
Right.
So it gives us the opportunity, as a new development comes, to adjust the line to capture that development and move it to a different school without disrupting the neighborhood. So that's, in part, it's probably not moving a whole line with existing families, but as development comes, we can send a new development to a school to create balance down there.
All right, Member Christensen.
Excuse me, did you mean to say Lino? You said Scandia.
There's a little tiny pink in the
Where the pink?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was looking at the pink at Lino, excuse me.
Yeah,
that little pink.
Yeah, we're not moving that area to Scandia.
Gotcha, I was like, that's a long bus ride.
Yeah, that would be really long.
Sorry, I see it now, excuse me.
That's almost a whole day's bus ride.
Yeah, sorry.
I think that's a really good example of why why these lines weren't drawn with rulers.
Yeah.
Right, some of us look at it and go, rulers, but no, it just doesn't fit a grid.
Right.
Any other questions or comments? Anything else?
You know, I know we're giving a lot of credit to the process, and rightfully so, but behind this are families who will move. And we know that will be impactful to families, and our principals are prepared to meet them where they're at, talk them through that, work with them, help them with that transition. We understand the magnitude of change that this is going to cause for some families.
All right, thank you so much,
Right,
Dr.
yeah,
Mueller,
thank
for
you.
coming in. That will move us to the first reading of the harassment and violence policy number 425.
Point of
Dr.
order.
Massey.
I would
Move to recess until 8:05.
Break?
Do we have a second?
second.
All right, motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, we are in recess.
Page, would you?
take that during a public comment. Sorry. All right, I will now call the Thursday, May 1st meeting back to order. Member Clerk, will you please take the roll call of attendance?
Yes. Member Corcoran? Here. Member Haglund?
Here.
Member Antonsen is here. Member Castle?
Here.
Member Christensen?
Here.
Member Rebbeline?
Here.
And Member Tyson is absent.
Okay, that brings us back to item 8.2, first reading harassment and violence policy number 425. Dr. Massey.
The purpose of this policy is to maintain a learning and working environment that is free from harassment, violence, and malicious and sadistic conduct based on race, color, creed, religion, national origin, sex, age, marital status, familial status, status with regard to public assistance, sexual orientation, including gender identity and disability, those being protected classes, and to prohibit sexual exploitation. This policy requires annual review. The policy committees reviewed this. It went back to policy committee. Initially, there was conversation regarding the inclusion of specific definitions for each of the protected classes, realizing that there isn't one uniform organization that provides or system that provides consistent definitions for all those different classes. You will see that on page 4 of the policy, instead of laying out specific definitions for the various protected classes, a general statement that would read, the protected classifications listed in this policy are defined according to the applicable state and federal statutes, laws, and decisions by courts of applicable jurisdictions. So that would cover a reference for definitions, should those definitions be necessary. And with that, this would be a first reading, so review those changes in the policy, and it would be up for approval next month.
Okay, thank
I
you,
would
Dr.
like
Massey.
to move to commit that policy again.
Okay, we have a motion to commit. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to commit. Any discussion? Member Atkinson.
The reason why is I have like a gazillion marginal notes on that policy, and I didn't realize when we discussed it last time, after deciding that we were just going to refer to legal or to define everything, which I'm totally comfortable with. There's just more to discuss for as far as I feel, and so I didn't quite realize that it was the end of talking about that. So I would like to discuss it further in committee.
Okay, any other discussion on the motion to commit? Okay, I think I'd add that I've been pretty deep into 425 myself this week and looking at the adjustments, and recognize that there's a number of changes that probably need to occur there, so I would concur with the motion to commit. Unless there's further discussion, we can move to a vote. All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, motion carries. That motion, the policy will be committed to the policy committee on May 15th. They're going to have a busy meeting. Okay, so if it pleases the board, I think I will bundle 8.3 and 8 all the way through 8.17 into a single point here. This is the first reading of the policies, the proposed policy 1100 and 1200 series. The intent of these policies is to bring Forest Lake area schools in alignment with the MSBA model policies that's one of the goals that we have here over the next year and a half. These policies, if members recall, we workshopped these extensively starting in January, working through March. The proposals are very, very similar to what we discussed. We had a couple of line items that we discussed during the meetings, different things that needed to be tweaked and tuned here and there. Those changes have at least largely been implemented, at least to the best of my ability, based on the comments that we had during the meetings. We do have a month to review these, so if there are any other proposed changes to these, we can handle them in the May 29th meeting when they come up for approval through amendments. These policies would replace the entire 100 series with the exception of 103A. Again, this is a first reading, so there's no action required tonight, but if there are questions or comments.
Yes.
Member Christensen.
I did have some questions and some comments, and I realize it's a first reading, but I feel like to be able to prepare, for future discussions. I need some more clarification. I think on specifically 1202, well, first of all, let me back it up. We did workshop these extensively, and there were discussions and changes and some suggestions, so I would have liked to have maybe been able to see those, because from what I can tell, some of the changes that we talked about during the workshop have not been included, or specifically in 1202, which is the school board members and officers' proposed policy. Director Friedman, in her original document on different notes and thoughts on the policy, she did have some concerns, and I see that those are still there, and F and G, to my understanding, are not in statute, but they are still there in the policy. And then I have quite a few concerns still on 1209, which is the school board member code of ethics, the proposed policy. We did talk about that quite a lot, and from what I can tell, I don't think any of the changes were made at all.
Okay. Do you have the specific sections on 1209?
Yes. 1209, 2C.
2C.
3 and 4. So I know we talked about this before, and just to be clear, I am not planning to do anything that I shouldn't do, or,
Of course.
I'm not planning on disparaging my fellow board members or anything like that. I just feel that 1202, it is extremely broad, and these were my concerns before. It is too broad and it's too vague, because it not only says, let me find the point exactly here, 2C, whoops, oh, sorry, wrong one, excuse me, hold on, here we go, 1209, excuse me, 2C, 3 and 4. So again, it says, make no disparaging remarks in or out of school board meetings about other members of the school board, their opinions, or their immediate family members. C4, I will not share any personal information privately or publicly about other members of the school board or their immediate family members without written permission. And I just, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe that those are in statute, or at least to that extent, including the immediate family. I just feel like if we want to make a rule, or, these are our policies, we can do what we want, but we can talk about, we're not going to say those things at the board table, we're not going to say those things at a board function or a school function. I just think to never, and again, I'm not going to say those things, I'm just saying this is so broad, it's so vague. I think it even could possibly border on freedom of speech. Anywhere out and about, I might say something, I don't know, and then somebody overhears me, and then somebody tells somebody else, and then all of a sudden, I didn't have written permission, to say that Gail, got a new dog or something. I don't know. This is just so broad and so vague. I'm really concerned about it. So if we want to, like I said, reel it in a little bit, the board table, board functions, even school functions. But I almost feel like that this is just going too far. We're just maybe trying to cover every facet of life, and it concerns me that someone could inadvertently do something or say something, and there could be major ramifications. And these were discussed in our workshop. We had lengthy discussion about this in the workshop. And as far as I can tell, none of these were changed.
Yeah, I do recall that, Member Christensen, so thank you for calling those out. I do think it's critically important. This is a big batch of policies, and it's more important to get them right than to get them fast. So I think we can figure out how to address those, whether the changes are small enough that we can address them by amendments, or we do a partial approval, and then we figure out how to handle those, or we see what the majority of the board wants to do. At this point, now that they're first readings, they're really no longer proposals of the chair. They belong to the board, so we can easily fix that through amendments. Any other discussion, Member Corcoran.
I have for 8.18, the school activities.
We are not there yet.
Oh.
Yep, this is eight,
Sorry.
no, this is 8.3 through 8.17.
Oh, so, okay. Sorry.
Is that, no, that's a little confusing.
Oh,
I understand.
I can't wait till the next one then.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, if not, then we will immediately move to 8.18. This is the school activities proposed policy. I just checked, and maybe I have an old version, but I didn't see the cover sheet updated for this one. So I will basically reiterate what I mentioned earlier in the meeting. Proposed policy 1510, that's what this one is, pertains to school-sponsored activities such as Minnesota State High School League, our various music programs, and other curriculum-focused academic opportunities for students. This policy does allow for students to create new activities. As you'll notice, this is based on MSBA policy 510. I do apologize to my fellow board members. The way I shared those on Google Drive were view only, I thought you could see version history. You cannot. I'll make sure that I pull out the changes on that one, and that's highlighted clearly when this comes for approval on the 29th. Member Corcoran, you mentioned you had a question on that.
Well, yeah, I had a question on 3D. I guess I'm unclear why that reference said, should a conflict between Forest Lake area schools policy and Minnesota High School League rules occur, that our policy overrides theirs, which I believe we're part of the Minnesota High School League. I don't think we can do that. I think we have to adhere by their rules. I don't think they're our governing board. I don't think we can do that.
I might be misremembering, but I could swear Mr. Caldwell said
Can we?
Something about their rules are even stricter than how did that go?
Our rules could be more strict than
Right,
theirs.
yeah,
if I
so
got that
it was,
correct.
but.
Yeah, we discussed that
Okay.
in committee at length, and
Okay.
that was, I will admit, that was an addition that I put in there over the MSBA policies, and my intent behind that was to give us, and I mean us as Forest Lake area schools, the opportunity to set certain parameters that we felt were relevant that may go above and beyond what Minnesota State High School League rules require, and that can be from a punitive action if, say, a student used drugs, how that might affect their ability to participate in sports, or if we wanted to set minimum GPA standards that go above and beyond what MSHSL requires, we would have that option.
Was this discussed with Mike Hennon at all? Also,
I don't believe so. We discussed it in committee,
well,
but.
we need to have his, we need to understand that if this can even be real. I mean, if we can do this.
Yeah.
Because when you're partner, or just like MSBA, you have to adhere to certain rules.
Correct, yeah.
So.
Mr. Caldwell, I
just
can't
don't-
tell if you have a comment, and I
Yeah.
welcome it
I'm
if
just
you do.
waiting to see if you're going to ask me to talk or not.
Can you talk?
You're of course welcome to if you have something to add.
We talked in policy committee that the Minnesota State High School League has a bylaw, I think it's 440, but I cannot remember the name off the top of my head, that specifically states that Minnesota State High School League rules that school districts can impose a more stricter rule, but they cannot impose a minor rule that's less
Yeah.
restrictive.
All right, thank you, Mr.
And we
Caldwell.
talked about adding that specific language into this policy.
Yes.
That said, Forest Lake reserves the right, Minnesota State High School, call it bylaw 440 or whatever. So that would clean up that, because we can be more strict, but we cannot be less strict.
Okay.
in high school.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you
Ms.
for
Wright.
clarity.
Joy, I don't know if that came through clear enough for the recording, or if we should have Mr. Caldwell come and explain that one more time for people online or for historical purposes, because I do think that's an important
And
distinction
maybe
that.
we could reference that 440, what he's saying within the
Yeah.
policy itself,
But
so
ju-
we have clarity.
Just to be clear, because I know outside of other entities I've been in before, that is a common practice that you can be more restrictive but not less restrictive of a governing body.
So I don't know if you want Mr. Caldwell to come up and say it one more time in the microphone, just so it's on record.
Would you mind, Mr. Caldwell? Yeah, and I think it's important to add that because the language that I proposed in here, that was the intent. So clarifying that,
It's very confusing to me.
yeah. Thank you,
Yeah,
Mr.
so
Caldwell.
just to clarify, the Minnesota State High School League has bylaw, I believe it's 440, but we'll have to double check the number. But it states something to the effect that that schools that belong to the Minnesota State High School League can impose a stricter rule, but they cannot be less strict than whatever the bylaws are of the high school league. And in many cases, we already are stricter than what the high school league lays out in some of our chemical things and things like that. So it would fall in line with our common practice. But I would, if we can, I think at policy, we recommended actually
Yeah.
talking about the bylaw
Finally.
in the high school league.
Yeah,
That helps me.
the language that we talked about in policy committee was much more restrictive on any requirements that we could propose. So I think we can wordsmith that and get that figured out. Member Christensen,
I wonder if we should maybe just even strike that whole sentence.
Since the bylaws allow it anyway?
Well, because we can't do,
Yeah, but if the bylaws allow that anyway, then it would be unnecessary within our policy.
I
But it
would,
Can I
Yeah,
think if we
remember I said-
have the wording in the policy, at least then parents of people in sports that are looking at all of these policies will have that information and understand why, just right there. I mean, like.
Well, with this being a first reading, I would suggest, I think this is a great discussion, I think this is a great point, but why don't we sleep on it a little bit, we'll think about it, and I think this is ripe for a potential amendment on the 29th, or even a recommittal. Yes, Member Christensen.
I'm sorry, sleep on it? What do you mean?
Just, this is a first reading, we won't actually take action on it on the 29th. So we can take action on the 29th, we can propose amendments, we can kind of tune this sentence in the boardroom, or we always have the option to commit.
Well, I was wondering about the option to recommit, because if we have time to recommit the harassment and violence policy back to committee, because there were some questions there. I mean, I think this 1510 is very important that we get it right. And so if we have time to recommit the harassment and violence policy.
A motion to do so
I
would
would,
certainly be in order.
yes, I would motion that we commit 510 back to policy for further discussion. So like you just said, that we can get it right, there's time, we want to make sure we get it right.
All right, motion, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion on the motion to commit? Member Hagelin?
It doesn't seem like a huge item to not work out over the next month before this comes up for a vote, that we could offer an amendment instead of having to go back to committee, because if you remember, in 2 weeks, it's our last committee, or policy committee meeting of the year. And if they don't have time to get their work done, this is gonna sit until the next school year.
I don't know if I'm comfortable with that. I would prefer to and this change, I am used to it from other organizations I've been in the past, where it is very common to have a rule that says you can be more restrictive, but not less as restrictive. And I think having it in the policy is a good thing, so that there's no question as to what the district is able to do for punitive actions, and we don't have to just follow MSHSL.
Can I ask, is that, or
I'm
pardon me,
not done yet.
excuse me.
So I feel that it is something that we could very simply look at over the next couple of weeks, propose a change or have changes ready to make an amendment, instead of sending it back to committee and then going through another month. I think this is an easy change we can make in the boardroom.
I do have a question. Is this in MSBA policy?
No, that's the sentence I added.
So this is a sentence that you added?
Yes,
Should
yep.
have come, okay.
Yep,
should have
that
come,
is the
yeah.
sentence I added. Member Corcoran?
And I just have a question about E also. So the superintendent should be responsible for conducting an annual evaluation of school activity programs. Do you currently do that? Is that something that's done now, or is that something that's just being, is that a new thing?
We evaluate, along with Mr. Caldwell and Mr. Hennon, our programs all the time.
All the time.
There's a review of programs with coaches at the end of each season. There isn't a formal report necessarily, but our programs are continually evaluated.
They're always evaluated. So, I mean, this is additional language about the time frames that he added. That's all additional
Yeah, and
words.
should that be the will of the board, we can certainly accommodate that.
Okay, any other comments or questions on the motion to commit? Okay, seeing none, I do have a suggestion. I agree with Member Haglund that I don't know that we need to commit this. The current sentence that we were discussing in section D there states, should a conflict between Forest Lake Area School policy and MSHSL rules occur, Forest Lake Area School policy will take precedence. I feel we could fix this simply by striking Forest Lake Area School policy and replacing it with the more restrictive policy or the more restrictive rule will take precedence.
Yes.
That is a very simple fix. I think it's something that we could do easily on the 29th. And we got a little bit of time to wordsmith that. So personally, knowing what kind of work the policy committee has coming up on the 15th, I will vote against the motion to commit, although I do think that it makes sense. I think it's something just very simple that we can fix quite easily that doesn't substantially change the intent of the language in the policy. So that's my current stance. Any more discussion on this?
I will
Christensen.
remove my motion then if we're able to change.
The motion belongs to the board at this point,
Oh, sorry.
so we can't do that, unfortunately. Yeah, but what we can do is we can vote against it. That will dispose of the motion, and it will leave it with us, and then we'll be able to fix this on the 29th. It appears to be relatively easy based on what I'm hearing from the discussion. Okay.
I think that, I like that fix.
All right, okay, so on the motion to commit, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed?
No.
No. Okay, the motion to commit fails. That will conclude the first reading of 1510. And we will see it again on the 29th for approval. And that will bring us to, sorry, I got to find it here. The first reading of 507. This policy currently provides the foundation for the existence of student clubs and organization. The Policy Committee has reviewed this policy and is presently considering MSBA model policies 510 and 801, which Forest Lake Area Schools will be numbering 1510 and 1801 in alignment with our MSBA policy adoption, which if adopted will replace policy 507. So this first reading here is the recommendation to rescind this policy so it can be replaced with policies 1510 and 1801.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
I think earlier, Member Haglund, you said that there was a July 1st deadline or something. Or did you say there was a deadline? I'm sorry.
Oh, the recommendation in here would be that the date on here would be effective July 1st, which would conclude our fiscal year, and that's when 1510 and 1801 would take effect.
And that is a deadline that administration has recommended? or
It's
something?
just...
How did we come up with that?
The recommendation, just to make it clean through the middle of the school year, so we're not changing things while the school year is going on. We can still operate under 507. We pick up on 1510 in September. And 1801.
And I guess that's assuming then, you're assuming then that 1510 and 1801 will pass then?
I don't see any reason why they wouldn't at this point. 1801 is going to the policy committee. They're going to submit some changes. They're going to get it back to us. So, all right, this is a first reading as well, so there's no action on that. That does bring us to item 9.1, donations. Member Christensen.
Yes. Yes. Yes, we have again, wonderful donations here on behalf of Forest Lake Area Schools. The Forest Lake Wrestling Booster Club donated $10,203.15 for coaches for the 2024-2025 season. The Hunter Hool Memorial Foundation, which I referenced earlier, has donated $7,000 to community education for financial assistance for students who qualify. $2,000 from Maurice Chevrolet for Forest Lake Area High School activities, the HOSA sponsorship. $500 from Johnson Turner Legal for the Forest Lake Area Schools Hall of Fame 2025 activities. $481.25 for Forest View Elementary PTA for field trip transportation. $334.20 from Member Castle for Forest Lake Area Schools Teaching and Learning Department for academics and learning. $200 from the First State Bank of Wyoming for Forest Lake Area Schools to support programs for families in need in the school district. An anonymous donation for $100 for the Forest Lake Area High School STEP program for the special ed prom. $20 for CAF America, Lino Lakes Elementary General Use. $425. These are all the same. $425 from Nicole Good. $3.70 from Dana Steiner. $3.10 from Sarah Stender. $2.53 from Michelle Parsons. All for Forest Lake Area Schools General Fund lunch refund. Craig Pudas for supplies for Linwood Elementary, repurposed shelves, and supplies from Melissa Schlemmer for the special ed department, a trike and some foldable gym mats, a platform swing, and a massage table, all totaling in goods and services $20,852.18, in total donations, and I move to approve with gratitude.
So moved.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on the donations? All right, seeing none, thank you so much to all of our generous donors. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Roll call.
Oh,
What?
Member Hagelin has requested a roll call. Thank you, Member Hagelin. Member Clerk, if you please take the roll call.
Sure, okay. Member Corcoran?
Aye.
Member Castle?
Abstain.
Member Rebbeline?
Aye.
Member Antonsen votes aye. Member Christensen?
Aye.
Member Tyson is absent. And Member Haglund?
Aye.
Okay, that brings us to item 9.2, Forest Lake Area School Staff Retirement Notice. Member Christensen.
Yes, we have 3 retirements on the agenda. Wendy Amond, a 4th grade teacher at Lino Lakes Elementary after 34 years of service. Deanne Danielson, a special ed paraprofessional at Lino Lakes, and she's been at other schools as well, following 31 years of service. And John Ryan, custodian at Forest Lake Area High School after following 9 years of service, for a total of 74 years of service. So thank you so much, and we wish them well in their retirement.
Do we have a motion? So moved.
Yes.
We have a motion.
Second.
Motion and a second, okay. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. 9.3, School-Sponsored Student Publications and Activities Policy 543, Dr. Massey.
The purpose of this policy is to protect students' right to free speech and the production of official school publications and activities, while at the same time balancing the school district's role in supervising student publications and the operation of public schools. I would draw your attention to the last page of the policy, item 5, where there's a listing for posting requirements and added language. The school district must adopt a student journalist policy consistent with Minnesota Statute 121A.80 and some posting requirements. So that drives the changes that are really driven by the legislature. You can see those listed, some of those numerical differences or changes in terms of numbering, but then changes and additions to definitions in the policy, item F, G, and H related to school-sponsored media, student journalist, student media advisor. Again, a reference to Minnesota statute requirements. There's a extensive addition, clarification around free speech, and then a number of items listed under B related to school-sponsored media, related to yearbook or school-sponsored activity, and is prohibited when the material is. So it provides a list of exceptions to free speech, if you will, if it meets these prohibited activities. So some nice additions to this policy that provides further clarification for student publications. And with that, administration would recommend approval.
All right, do we have a motion?
Move to approve 9.3.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, motion carries. Brings us to 9.4, credit for learning policy 620. Dr. Massey.
This is an important policy with respect to the effort and the process the high school and the community school engage in when bringing students in from other schools halfway through their high school time and bringing credits with them. So it begins to spell out how we transfer credits from other systems into our system. It also carries a language related to concurrent enrollment, including post-secondary enrollment, college in the schools, credit that kids earn in other systems, and how those credits are brought into our system, and the requirement that if we weight those credits in our system, then and similar classes in our system, then concurrent enrollment and post-secondary would also be required to be weighted. And you'll see that in item 8 or section 8 of the policy. With those additions and changes, administration recommends your approval.
All right, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, motion carries. Brings us to 9.5, resolution relating to $10,750 general obligation facilities maintenance bond series 2025A, authoring issuance, awarding sale, prescribing the form and details, and providing for the payment thereof. Director Renberg.
Good evening, Board, Chairline, and Dr. Massey. I'm here tonight, exciting day for Forest Lake Area Schools this morning, so I'm going to let Jody Zazba from Ehlers explain our results today.
Thank you, Chrissy. It was an exciting morning when we took bids for your bonds. We talked about this bond issue in a little more detail last month, so I'll just highlight some of the results that we received today. So we're financing deferred maintenance projects, and this is part of the long-term facilities maintenance program, which was put in place to protect the investment that your taxpayers have made in your facilities. So just like your own home, you need to replace roofs, you need to take care of parking lots, lighting, all sorts of projects, and this allows you to be able to do that, which is fabulous. So we did have the rating process, which we talked about last month, and they assigned the AA1 as part of the State Credit Enhancement Program and also affirmed your A3 rating. So Dr. Massey and Chrissy participated in that process, and please know that they represented your district very well. They were asked a lot of questions, needed to provide a lot of information, and so that was very helpful as part of the process. So thank you both again for that. This morning we received 9 bids. We'd like to receive 3 bids, so getting that many bids from really throughout the country was great to see. The low bidder was from Hilltop Securities out of Dallas, Texas, and they provided a rate of 3.26. Last month, we were hoping to get a 3.95, be right under that 4% rate, so we were very, very pleased with the results today. Rates have been a little volatile, as you might know, so being able to take advantage of that, rates have come down a little bit this week and even came down from yesterday just a little bit for the results that we received this morning. So we will be closing on the bonds May 22nd. You have the resolution before you. I will walk through the attachments to the report. The bid tab is first, and it's long with the 9 bidders. So you received the low bid, again, Hilltop Securities at 3.26, followed closely behind by a local bidder, underwriter Piper Sandler from Minneapolis at 3.29, and then bids from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Chicago, New York, another one from Milwaukee, Birmingham, Alabama, Atlanta, and Boston. And the high bid was a 3.54. So then we have schedules. These are the exact same schedules that we had included in the pre-sale report. Again, we talked about those in a little more detail last month, so they're just updated now with the results of the sale. So our sources and uses showing the amount available for the construction fund, the debt service schedule, the long-term debt plan, which includes lots of details related to your existing debt and this bond issue as well as future. So We're always taking a long-term view to try to maintain a nice level tax rate or have some step downs, which you can see we do have included on attachments page 6. That bar chart shows how the tax rate for your debt service, debt and capital levies will play out over time. And then there's 2 reports from the rating agency attached. So the first is the press release that they issued after they made their decision on the rating, and the second is a more detailed credit opinion. And happy to answer any questions that you might have related to any of the information, including in the results. But we're very pleased with the results, as I mentioned, and appreciate the opportunity to be of service to the district once again.
All right, thank you. Any questions or comments?
Well, of course, I can say how great Jody is, and thank you again for all your hard work, and I mean, I'm glad it's less than what we thought. So is that kind of I mean, I know it's less than you expected, but is that, as the time went closer, did you kind of see that pattern coming up, or did you kind of feel that it was going to be less?
No,
closer
I mean, we
to-
never know exactly, right, because rates
Okay.
have been bouncing around a little bit,
Yeah.
and, yeah, so
Just
it's
never know.
hard to know. So we're always kind of a little bit on pins and needles until we see everything with the whites of our eyes. So, yeah, this morning was great to see those results.
Especially with 9, that's
Yes.
exceptional, right? To have that many?
That's a lot of bids, so a lot of interest in your bonds, and that's exciting to see. And whenever you get that much demand, you generally do get a good result, too.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I remember in Finance Committee, we were talking about the timing of this, and it was, we have no way of knowing, so it seems like this dropped at the perfect time. We got a really good rate here. I think for those who are watching this, I want to clarify something. The agenda item is 10,750 with 2 dots, but that is $10,750,000. So I was going to ask for clarification on that, but now that I look at it a little bit closer, I think that's the clarification we're looking for. This is a $10,750,000 general obligation facilities maintenance bond. Okay. So the one question I would have here is a AA1 and an A3 rating. Those sound pretty good, but there has to be some recommendations on what we can do to improve those ratings to continue to get quality bids. Would you mind speaking to that?
Yeah, so you can see that there are some specific bullet points within the reports that you receive from the credit rating agency, and that's Moody's. So I will point you to, if you look at the bottom of the pages, attachments page 13. So they're showing you there, this is the credit opinion specific to Forest Lake, and you'll see that factors that could lead to an upgrade are consistently stable enrollment trend, so they've been watching your enrollment, and then ability to structurally balance operations and maintain an available fund balance ratio consistently near 15%. That is not just your unassigned fund balance, so their available fund balance includes debt service funds as well as some reserved funds within your general fund. So you guys speak most frequently about your unassigned fund balance.
Yes, we do.
So just know that this encompasses a little bit more than what you're looking at in terms of your just unassigned fund balance. They do bring some additional components into that. So that's what they're looking for in terms of improving the rating that's assigned. The next rating category that you would be, that if you were one notch up, would be an A2. So you're in the single A category. That's there's 3 within the single A, A1, A2, A3, and you're at the single A3.
Okay. And Director Remberg, I apologize if I'm putting you on the spot here because we do always talk about unrestricted fund balance, and I feel like we're right around that 4% number. But with this calculation in place, where do we fall? Any even guess?
So that's on page 14.
Okay.
So you can see for your audited fund balance, available fund balance, according to Moody's calculation, was 7.5% at the end of 2024, and we're expecting a little increase for taxes payable in for fiscal year 25 also.
All right. So
you're getting there, and you can see that trend looks good, looks better, right? Because it had been going down, the available fund balance. They calculate that once your audit is complete each year. And back in 2021, it was at 4.6%, went down to 3.7 and 2.1, and then bounced up to 7.5. So movement in the right direction for 2024 and hopefully again for 2025.
Yeah, definitely something to pay attention to as we go into planning for the next fiscal year. Any other questions before we move to a motion?
Jody, can you highlight again the additional funds that become available due to the low rates?
So you did receive about $300,000 more for your projects with the premium bid that you received, yep, from the underwriter, so that's great. So,
That sounds like a win-win.
yes, good news all around, yes.
All right, with that in mind, if there are no other questions, we can move to a motion.
Move to approve?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion?
And the resolution does have the $10,750,000 as part of it, so I
Yes,
just
that
made sure,
is
just had to
correct.
look at that, yeah. Yep.
I looked at that very close. I did notice that it was just the title, and when I read it, it felt odd to me to read it out loud, and I was thinking, we're going to have to get clarification on that. So, yes, thank you for pointing that out. The resolution is correct. The title in the meeting, and therefore my comment was incorrect. It is $10,750. So, since we have a motion, we have a second, we have no discussion. Member Clerk, would you please take the roll call?
Sure. Okay, Member Reveline.
Aye.
Member Tyson is absent. Member Antonsen, aye. Member Castle.
Aye.
Member Haglund.
Aye.
Member Corcoran.
Aye.
Member Christensen.
Aye.
All right, the motion carries.
Great, thank you again.
Well,
Thank you for coming. That brings us to 9.6, set medical premiums for 2025, 2026. Director Renberg-Eide.
Thank you very much. We have been talking about our medical plan for all year and about the fact that we, in January, started to go out for our HITA bid, so looking at what carriers would come in at rates. We were able to, a couple meetings ago, get Healthy Z approved as our TPA for the next 2 years. Now, once we know that, we're able to set the premium. Both Benefits and Finance Committee has gone over all the data of what the expected claims are. We're also making a huge push in our negative fund balance in self-insurance. And so the premium recommendation, again, we knew that it would likely be double digits this year, so we're really excited to come in just under that with a recommendation from NIS of 9.5%. We know that that doesn't change the impact that it has on our staff with that premium increase. So we definitely acknowledge that, but knowing that that's what needs to happen to make our self-insurance fund, again, cut that deficit at least in half, if not more. And so we would increase the single rate of premium from $1,075 per month to $1,178 per month, and our family premium from $2,785 per month to $3,050 per month. And again, there's a district contribution for both of those, and then there's some employee for each of those in some of the groups.
All right, thank you. Any questions? Member Haglund.
Could you tell us how much of a decrease this is from the previous year's premium increase?
So it was a 13% last year, so, and it's a 9.5 this year.
Positive movement, still high, but
Again,
positive.
yes, knowing with the negative fund balance and medical trend has also gone up, so we were at about 5 to 6% medical trend in the past, and now we've seen Mayo Clinic signal and others that it's going up to about a 7 to 8% medical trend. So knowing that the costs are just going up in that to begin with, the medical premium has to also make up for that too.
Thank you.
Yep.
Member Corcoran.
So the deficit you talked about, do you anticipate hopefully by the next year, hopefully getting that kind of zeroed out? It's a plan, right?
We have a 5-year plan, so, yep, we're a year and a half into the 5-year plan. So we could be ahead of schedule then if we cut it in half, right, in 1 year, so that would be huge. We will see how it goes. We have a huge commitment with Health EZ to provide great customer service for our plan and make sure that they cover all the medical needs of the district and implement our plan well. And so with that, we do hope to continue with them the following year and see those savings again. Again, they're a third-party administrator, TPA. They don't have a fully insured side of it, and that provides some saving costs for us as a self-insured plan.
Great news, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, I do have one question myself. Where does the current fund balance sit?
So it's medical and dental together are about a negative 2.1, I believe. So, but the medical, there is a positive fund balance for dental that kind of offsets. So the medical sits higher than that.
Yeah, but that is still a marked improvement since the first time I remember even talking about it.
Significant,
Yep.
Here.
Yep.
And I think we owe a lot of gratitude to our staff for shouldering some of these premium increases. I do recognize that, and I'm sure our staff recognizes too, that they're kind of paying back all those years of 0% premium increases that caught up with us. And we, at least I know I do at the board table here, recognize the real cost to families and to individuals on maintaining those health benefits. And we're all doing the best that we can do, and I appreciate their cooperation in this process as we work through it. Member Christensen?
Director Member Guidi, do these, so the single premiums, is this across all of our classifications? Yeah.
Yep, district-wide. And again, different contributions come with different bargaining agreements. So you'll see some of that information as we look to adopt two tonight.
Okay, any other questions? All right, seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve.
Move to approve?
Second.
All right, motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All right, seeing none, Member Clerk, would you please take the roll call?
Yes, I will. Okay, Member Castle?
Aye.
Member Antonsen is aye. Member Haglund?
Aye.
Member Rebbeline?
Aye.
Member Christensen?
Aye.
Member Corcoran?
Aye.
Member Tyson is absent. The ayes have it.
Okay, that brings us to action item 9.7, first general fund budget adjustment. Director Member Guidi.
Thank you very much. So first budget adjustment of the year. So as last year, we did one budget adjustment in the spring. We always start our budget very conservatively as we look at what the legislature is going to do with funding and also our enrollment. We know we have declining enrollment. We know what years there's higher and lower numbers that we lose. So we want to make sure that we understand that enrollment. We do a revenue review with our auditor from now LB Carlson instead of MMKR with their merger. And so we do that in February. So once we know the information, we bring the adjustment to the school board. We did see a general fund revenue increase of just over $3 million. The biggest part of that was our special education. You may remember that about a year ago, we talked a lot about the hold harmless and how we had finally got above the hold harmless. You're always in a position where you don't know if for sure you're going to stay above it or not the next year. Once you've made it over that line, it's not a guarantee that you're going to stay there. And so we were conservative in our original budget to say that we would not stay there, and we were able to be above and beyond that. So we went ahead and recognized that revenue there. EL revenue was additional from the state, along with READ Act and literacy aid. Classified unemployment was thought to potentially run out before the end. It will, but not to the extent that we thought. So we have an adjustment in revenue there. Miscellaneous revenue is another area that we were looking at. Our admissions were a lot better as the audit came through at the end of the year. And also just some other areas. Interest is going to continue to do better than expected. So looking at those areas. And then increased enrollment is the last area in revenue that we saw. Again, we have really good enrollment and won't lose the 100 students that we projected this year. On the expenditure side, we saw expenditures increase around $2.7 million in this general fund adjustment. That has to do with some of the offsetting of the revenue I talked about. So when we bring revenue in categorical funding, we have to spend it. And that's what it's for. So READ Act training, you had a great presentation from Director Jacobson on that, and also talked about at several of our elementary presentations. And so that the funding for that was provided, and we need to accommodate the expenses for that. Unemployment, same thing. Balancing the revenue and the expenditures. We continued our bus lease program that we have. You'll be talking about that later tonight too. And so again, just shoring that up with the increased cost of buses. We know that they have increased in price significantly over the last 4 years. The Columbus well, we had to add that. That was an unexpected expense this year. Our settlement packages that we're working through with our classified staff, we had to put that into the budget. Medical premium adjustment, again, as we see an increase in those premiums, if they're covered by the district, that means there's an increase in what the district would owe. And then property liability and cyber insurance, we know that insurance is going up in our homes, and it also goes up for the school district. So there was an adjustment there. Along with our medical assistance aid, we just, again, put expenses to the revenue that was there. So that's what makes up the budget adjustments for the general fund. In the food service fund, you'll see there was adjustments. We did stop our contract
contract with the Leela for their food service. They chose to go with a vendor for this school year. So in our preliminary budget, they hadn't selected if they were going to go with a vendor or not, so we had them in there. So those expenditures and revenues reduced to reflect the fact that we're not serving that building this year. And then construction fund just reflects the bonds that we sold this morning. And that would be the budget adjustment.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Member Hagelin?
Looking at the increase for revenues from student enrollment and all the expenditures that you just listed off, I see a positive increase of about 340, a little over 340,000. Is that going to get committed to fund balance then? Because I see that in the resolution it says we're going to still commit the $1 million that we had previously. Is there any reason why we didn't commit that net gain into fund balance?
Right, so I don't know that we committed it anywhere yet. So always as the school year comes to a close, things can still happen. So it would go to fund balance if nothing else pops up. So, yep.
All right, any other questions? All right, seeing no questions, I think we got to give a little bit of credit to Director Wilson and her team with the Hold Harmless and Special Ed. I've seen some of the magic that those numbers are, and it's not always within our control, and it probably drives her crazy and keeps her up at night. So she deserves some kudos on that one. With that, I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All right, seeing none, Member Clerk?
Okay, Member Castle.
Aye.
Member Corcoran.
Aye.
Member Antonsen votes aye. Member Tyson is absent. Member Haglund.
Aye.
Member Christensen.
Aye.
Member Rebbeline.
Aye. All right, that brings us to action item 9.8, recommendation to approve the 2026-2027 academic calendar. Director Jacobson.
Thank you, Chair Rebbeline, members of the board, Dr. Massey, for having me back again tonight. Last month, we took a look at a concept regarding a calendar, not for this fall, but for the 26-27 school year. We typically try to settle on a calendar at least 12 months out in advance for our staff and our families so they can make plans around that calendar. If you recall, in the fall of 2026, the first day of September falls on a Tuesday, which pushes Labor Day to the following Monday, September 7th, which is the latest point it can sit on any given calendar. So what we looked at last month was an academic calendar that would have us starting school a week prior to Labor Day, and then getting out of school early in June on June 4th. We had some vibrant discussion across the board on a mix between trying something new and starting before Labor Day, or sticking to a calendar pattern much like we have in the past. And so the suggestion came up, and I think it was a good one, to reach out to our community, our families, survey them, gather some data as to what their thoughts are on the calendar. And so what we're going to do, if you would allow me, is to take a look at some data related to the survey results that we got back. So the first chart represents a Likert scale. On the far left, strongly indicates strongly dislikes, or dislikes very much, and on the far right, likes very much. The concept around a calendar in which we would keep after Labor Day start. And as you can see, we have people on both sides that feel pretty strongly about this. People either have a strong opinion on whether they dislike a calendar that starts after Labor Day and would prefer to try something new starting before Labor Day, or community members that very much like to leave it the way it is. Largely behind this, as we dug through the comments on why people like to stay with a calendar that starts after Labor Day, a lot of the comments fed into, this is our last opportunity as a family to get out of town, to take advantage of the lake area, or go on family trips. That comment came up a number of times in the text that people could type into the survey, so I'd share that with you here. When you take a look at the option of starting before Labor Day, you're going to see a similar trend. People either strongly dislike the notion of starting before Labor Day, or think it is a very favorable option. So, much like a lot of things related to the calendar, people have strong opinions, strong opinions based on this. So what we did is we put forth into the board packet 2 calendar concepts for the board to spend a little time discussion. Again, this is for not next year. I think that's important to note. We're talking about the year after, 26, 27. The first, one of the 2 calendar options would have an after Labor Day start, and you can see that the first day of school there would be on Tuesday, September 8th, taking us to the last day of school on Thursday, June 10th. The other option is an iteration of the previous before Labor Day start. Again, a lot of the feedback that we heard was families wanting to use the Labor Day weekend to get out of town and do family vacations. So leaning into that, what we did there is you'll see the first day of school would still be in this proposal, Monday, August 31st, but that would represent a 4-day school week. Friday would be a day off, creating a 4-day Labor Day weekend. And then we would have, again, the end of the school year taking place on Thursday, June 3rd, rather than Thursday, June 10th. We were able to create that day off around Labor Day by having school on Wednesday, December 23rd, which is what you didn't see in 2 weeks ago in the calendar. Option. So 2 calendar options, one with a before Labor Day start, one with an after Labor Day start to have some discussion around.
Right,
So I know if I
Please.
can, I'm reiterating what Director Jacobson just indicated. If the decision is to start before Labor Day, the adjustment made from the previous month's conversation to today is taking off the Friday before Labor Day. So essentially giving families a 4-day weekend around Labor Day and still starting before Labor Day. And then making up for that date on the 23rd of December still allows for that end of the calendar, that first week of June.
Thank you for that clarification, Dr. Ryan. I'm going to kick off the questions here this evening, since that's the way it seems to be going tonight when I ask for them. But when I look at the survey results, they seem extremely balanced. And I say balanced in the sense that people love the idea of starting before Labor Day, and they hate the idea. But when you flip it and you ask the opposite question, we get exactly the same results. And the data, I say statistically, is equal. So if all things are equal, and of course we need to look at this through an educational lens for our students, are there any advantages to either calendar from an educational standpoint for our students?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Chair Ribeline. What I would say is if you look at this through the lens of high-stakes tests that students take in the spring of the year, including advanced placement tests or the opportunity to perform well on college entrance tests, pushing as much instructional time before those tests into the calendar as much as possible gives students more time to prepare and to perform. In particular, I would point to our AP courses at the high school. I think I've mentioned we have a number of AP courses at the high school. In order for students can do well at that course and pass the content, but if they take an end of AP course exam, that if they pass that at a certain level, can carry college credit into different universities, giving students another week in the year to prepare for that would create an academic advantage that way.
Okay, so there would be an advantage to the calendar that starts prior to Labor Day.
More time before the spring, early in the year, would create that advantage.
Okay, thank you, Director Jacobson. Member Christensen.
I just wanted to make a point. So in 2027, Labor Day is September 6th. So I think whatever we decide tonight will probably apply for 2 years. We're not looking at that calendar, but if we decide to start before or after, we're going to be in the same situation in 2027, not in 2028, but we'll be in this. So, while we're thinking about this, discussing this, I agree with Chair Rebline, people love it or hate it, but we're pretty much committing to 2 years, I would think. Without approving the calendar.
But are we gonna, doesn't it have something to do with having a construction project to start before Labor Day? What is?
Yeah, the state is currently considering a bill that would allow districts to make this decision independent of some of those current requirements. The current requirements, or items that would give permission for districts to make the decision to start before Labor Day would be a 300,000, I think it's 300,000 or 400,000. Maybe Director Renberg, ID, do you know that number? 400,000, 300,000, construction to start before Labor Day. 400,000. Every summer, given the bond proceeds that you just approved, indicates that we're at a pretty large magnitude of construction every summer, therefore qualifying for before Labor Day start.
I would also add that our district has a state border, which is another one of the qualifiers, so we're
So
covered
good to
at the
go.
moment.
Okay.
All right. Member Corcoran.
Well, I didn't like the earlier calendar. I didn't like to start before Labor Day. I was always, as you know, I'm always fought for after Labor Day. I just feel like that's important. But I really appreciate your creativity by changing this, adding that Friday off, giving them, still having the weekend, but also getting them out of school before the second week of June because of summer school and things that possibly, could run into problems in the future with that. So I do appreciate you redoing the calendar, and I think it's a great compromise. Yep. I truly like it a lot. Thank you.
Member Hagelin.
The chair asked the question I was going to. Probably the most important question is academically.
Yes.
What's the best fit? Now my curiosity kicks in because you mentioned some of the feedback they gave on starting after Labor Day because of the state fair. What kind of comments did you have about starting before Labor Day that you would care to share? Was there?
I'm looking at Dr. Massey here.
Most of the comments were related to the June end date and not liking the late end date and getting kids out of school earlier. So some of the comments were related to heat in June, but there's heat in September and August as well. But I think it's really that late end date that was the driving component to the comments.
Yeah, I've only heard feedback from a couple of parents that were advocating for the after Labor Day start, and I understand their concerns and stuff, but, to Member Corcoran's point, the flexibility that you've added into there, hopefully that will alleviate any of those issues with them, because I believe that the biggest thing is to what's academically best for the district.
All right, any other questions before we move to a motion?
I would just, not to belabor the conversation, but to add a component to the AP item. There are states, as you know, across the country that start in mid-August. And our kids' scores are compared to their scores, and they have 2 extra weeks in AP Calc or biology or chemistry or history, whatever it might be. And then their scores are normed off of each other as well against kids that have 2 extra weeks of instruction. It's just to add, I guess, more credibility or weight to the notion of academic time, learning time prior to high-stakes tests.
And to that point, I think many of our border states start early. I know South Dakota does. My niece and nephew start in the middle of August. And they're out in about a week or two here. So, a big advantage. Anybody other questions? Member Christensen?
I just have one more comment, and I said this before, but just to reiterate, I think if we do decide to go with the before Labor Day, I feel like we just really have to just really do a lot of communication. And I know we do communication, but parents aren't going to pay any attention, or not, parents are busy, they're not going to pay any attention, then all of a sudden we're like, what, we're starting, So I think we're going to really have to hit communication is going to be really important.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, so seeing none, I think if I get the sense of the board here, I'm going to entertain a motion to start before Labor Day.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and this is the calendar that we will adopt to start before Labor Day. Any discussion on the motion? Well, seeing none, Member Clerk?
All right. Member Haglund.
Aye.
Member Antonsen is aye. Member Rebbeline.
Aye.
Member Castle.
Aye.
Member Tyson is absent. Member Christensen.
Aye.
And Member Corcoran.
Aye.
The ayes have it.
And that brings us to action item 9.9, the topic that we just cannot seem to dispose of this year. Approval of the 2025 to 2026 school board meeting calendar. Dr. Massey?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will provide just a reiteration of the data that I provided to you in a previous update with respect to the number of activities that fall on Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday per the request of the board. And if you recall in that data, there were almost an equal number of high school and district-wide activities on Tuesdays as there is on Thursday this current year, and it would play out again next year. That's kind of our pattern. Fewer on Mondays, but still conflicting activities on Mondays as well. So it does not account for youth activities, FLAW activities, community education activities, which really stretch across Mondays through Thursday, even into Friday and Saturday.
Okay, with that, I would entertain a motion to approve as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve as presented. The as presented calendar is to follow our typical trend of Thursday nights. So we can move to discussion. And any discussion? Member Corcoran?
And I guess for me, mine was more about community events, not really school district events. It's more out of the schools, like, well, turkey bingo, like tonight, we're missing the Great Taste of Forest. We're missing like those big events that are really important for communities that seem to be a lot on Thursdays. I've missed many over the years. And that's my, problem with Thursday nights. If we could all look at Tuesdays is what I would prefer, but I mean, I'm just one person, so.
Okay, any other discussion here? Member Christensen?
I mean, I would, just looking, based on the discussions we've had in other places that I've looked up, I mean, I think we'd have to go to Monday. We'd either move to Monday, in my opinion, or we'd keep it on Thursday. Tuesday's not gonna help us out, when, you're not gonna do Wednesday night because of church and whatever, but, yeah, I don't know. I myself would like to see it move to Mondays, but, I mean, it's not a hill I'm willing to die on, so.
Member Hagelin?
Yeah, I would say moving to Mondays, I think, is out because there'll be so many people that are gone for long weekends or whatever, and, no matter what day we move it to, there's gonna be conflicts, and it's been on Thursday nights for, I don't know how long, and it hasn't.
25 years, I don't know.
I remember Corcoran would probably be able to tell if this discussion's ever come before.
It has not. I've been trying to. Never happened.
I know, I'm just, after all the discussions, seeing the calendars, you're never gonna make everybody happy. I would say just leave it on Thursdays.
Member Castle?
As a general comment, people have enough with Mondays. I myself, I work 4/10, so I don't work tomorrow, so being here till 9, I don't have to get up at 4 tomorrow. But I'm just one person.
Any other discussion? I think I'd just add before we vote here that, I've heard a lot of feedback from the community on the pace of change and the different things that we've been looking at, especially over the last year. I mean, we go back to Reimagine and moving the middle school or moving the sixth graders to the middle school, closing Forest Lake Elementary. Now we're doing district boundaries. This is the best attendance I've seen at school board meetings in my tenure on here, and it seems like the community is pretty comfortable with Thursday night. I know I've kind of fallen in my rhythm on Thursday nights, so I don't see any reason to change that for the sake of change personally. And if there's no other discussion.
Move to approve 9.9.
We have a motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, the motion carries. We finally have a school board meeting calendar. 9.10, approve 2024-2026 bus drivers and bus aides agreement. Dr. Massey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm happy to share with the board tonight that we have an agreement, a signed agreement, and an approved agreement with our bus drivers and aides that fit within the parameters provided by the school board. There are several language items that are amended in the agreement. The first one would be a monetary piece, but also a language piece that would add an additional $100 district contribution to family medical. The contract CBA for the bus drivers and aides also identifies a time in which school cancellation due to inclement weather would be made. Currently, that's 5:30 a.m. Because of the change in school start times, et cetera, over the years, there was an interest in moving that notification to 5:15 a.m., and that makes good sense. I selfishly resisted a bit because that just means I'm busy making that decision that much earlier, but I think it makes good sense so that bus drivers would get that notification before they get in their car
Yeah.
and inclement weather to come. So that would be a change in the CBA. Across the different contracts over the last couple of years, we've added Juneteenth. That gets added to this contract now. And then we increase the extra trip meal stipend to $8 for breakfast, $12 for lunch, and $15 for dinner. The wage increases would be reflected as they have 5 different steps, so we would increase the first 2 steps by 2.5%, the middle step by 1.5%, and the third and fourth steps at 4% each, and 3% across the board in the second year. So with those changes, we would ask for your approval tonight, and I would extend our deep gratitude to our bus drivers who provide a vital service to the kids in our district. They provide a welcoming, friendly environment. You've seen those bus drivers in this room. They care about the kids they pick up and drop off every day. And again, a really critical service for the district. Again, administration recommends your approval.
Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
I know. Well,
Any discussion on the motion? Member Corcoran.
I'm just happy it all got
Yes.
resolved, and I want to thank the bus drivers for their patience and working through the contract and all the people that were involved, because I know it took a long time. So I appreciate their sticking with us and getting it resolved, and finally don't have to worry about that right now anymore. It's been a long haul.
Any other discussion?
I'd
All
like
right.
to say I just
Member
heard what
Edges?
they said when they, sorry.
Go ahead.
I heard what they said when they came and talked here to us, and I'm really happy that we were able to offer them something they could accept and be happy with, so,
Yeah, I
yeah.
agree.
That's all.
I too, I like to see the $100 on family medical. That's a nice little offset with the rate increase. I hope that helps families out quite a bit. I understand they voted pretty overwhelmingly to approve this, so I'm happy to put my vote in to approve it as well. If there is no other discussion, Member Clerk, please take the roll call.
I will, okay. Member Castle?
Aye.
Member Tyson is absent. Member Haglund?
Aye.
Member Rebbeline?
Aye.
Member Corcoran?
Aye.
Member Antolson is aye, and Member Christensen?
Aye.
Thank you.
That
Ayes
brings-
have it.
Brings us to 9.11, approve the 2024 to 2026 custodial agreement. Dr. Massey.
Similarly, we are happy to bring to you a ratified and approved agreement with our custodians, fitting within the parameters that the school board provided for us to negotiate with. The language increases would be similar to the bus drivers and aides, an increase of $100 to the family medical contribution, adding Juneteenth as a designated holiday. And then we added a $350 stipend for a custodian who holds the state well license, which provides great value for us as a district. Wage increases would be similar to the bus drivers and aides, with a 2.5% in each of the first two steps, 1.5% in the third, and 4% in the third and fourth steps for the lanes for the custodians, and then a 3% increase across the board in the second year. With that, administration recommends approval, and I extend our gratitude for the work that our custodians do for us in the district.
Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on this one? All right, seeing none, Member Clerk?
All right. Member Corcoran?
Aye.
Member Christensen?
Aye.
Member Rebbeline?
Aye.
Member Tyson is absent. Member Antonsen votes aye. Member Castle?
Aye.
And Member Haglund?
Aye.
And the ayes have it.
All right, motion carries. Brings us to 9.12, agreement for school resource officer services between Independent School District 831 and the City of Forest Lake. Dr. Massey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In front of you is a recommendation to approve the extension of our agreement with the Forest Lake Police Department. Through this agreement, they provide 3 school resource officers for the district, 1 at the high school, 1 at the middle school, and 1 at the community school that also serves as an additional resource for the high school. They also cover and serve needs that we might have at Forest Lake Elementary and Forest View. I will stress again, the relationship that we have with the Forest Lake Police Department is unmatched across the state. Often, other districts will reach out to the city as well as the school district, looking to see what we're doing with our arrangement and looking to replicate and model their arrangement similar to what we have. They provide a vital service that is not just about security, but it's also about the relationships that they provide for kids. We know that when kids feel safe in school, our schools are safer as well. So it's also the relationship our kids form with the SROs. And if you've ever had a chance to watch our SROs interact with our students, you can see firsthand the connection that they have with our kids. So we are extremely grateful for the relationship that we have and the safety and security they provide for the school district. This updated agreement has one additional language piece, if you will. You'll see that in Exhibit A. I asked that we add there, in terms of the school officers' expectation around duties and responsibilities, and that's to make sure that they lock in the state-required training for school resource officers. That's a specific addition recently added by the legislature, so I wanted to make sure we have that in the contract. And then the last page of this agreement and contract would be the wage increases, which simply reflects the wage increases the officers serving our district are entitled to through their own agreements with their union with the city. So they pass that along to the district as a cost. So I would point out that when the officers are not working in our schools, spring break, winter break, Christmas break, other breaks, summertime, that's a cost to the city, not the school district. We're paying for their time when they're working in our schools, not the times when they're patrolling or doing other duties for the city. It's a fair contract and one that provides a vital service, and administration recommends approval.
All right, thank you. I entertain that motion to approve.
Move to approve. Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Member Haglund.
Okay, notice you.
I had a thought as you're reading through this, knowing from personal family experience and the programs available in our state that we have a lot of law enforcement technical colleges in the state. Has there ever been any discussion about bringing in a law enforcement student as part of like a training, as part of their training, that would also help bolster our security presence at these schools?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's a conversation I've had with both the chief in Wyoming and the chief here in Forest Lake, Chief Peterson. They're actually starting an Explorer program with the Forest Lake Police Department, so that could provide that opportunity that you're speaking to. It would be the responsibility or the agent of that that mechanism would be the Forest Lake Police Department taking on the Explorer or the police officer in training, attach that trainee to one of our SROs. So we have had conversation around that. I've expressed our interest in any additional training that they want to provide that provides services to us, we would be wide open to.
Okay, thank you. Member Castle.
Well, I would like to see a bid from the counties, as the Forest Lake would not be able to cover Scandia, Lino Lakes, and the other elementary schools. I remember my children being very happy with when Chris Majeski was doing DARE officer at Scandia. And I know that the counties do a very good job, and I would like to see the coverage in the other schools. So I don't know when this is due for renewal, what's the deadline, and if we have time to get a bid from the 3 counties that our district is in.
I think your approval of this agreement with Forest Lake Police Department would be independent of any conversation or negotiation with Anoka, Washington, or Chisago County. Deputy Booth is in Officer Majeski's role today, who spends a great deal of time at Scandia Elementary. He's got a key fob and is able to come in and out for lunches and interacting with kids, provides the DARE service at Scandia. If it's the interest of the board to have conversation about a more permanent position, that would be a negotiation or conversation with the counties. I do know that Lino Lakes Elementary has a great relationship with Lino Lakes Police Department. Those officers are quick to respond when needed, and they're also in and out of the school when they're patrolling. Chisago the same, and Wyoming Police Department for Wyoming Elementary. So all of that to say we've got really strong connections and relationships with the counties and other police agencies in Lino Lakes and Wyoming in particular. That's not a permanent officer, but the relationship is such that we have a great deal of presence from those folks.
Would there be an interest in a director from the board to maybe examine that and bring something to us later this summer?
I was just going
Member
to add,
Christensen?
I think we're talking about SROs here that are school resource officers that are at the middle school, at the secondary level. I mean, I'm not familiar with other schools or districts, but I'm in this regard. But I don't know that there's SROs placed at elementary schools very often. I mean,
there would be some communities that would have that, more Minneapolis, St. Paul, urban schools.
I mean, I can speak to, Member Cass. I mean, I work at Scandia still, and I mean, yeah, Washington County sheriffs are out there. They're still doing DARE. I mean, when we needed assistance, they were out. I think the one day at lunch there was like 3 of them in there. So, I think that we have assistance, and that would be a discussion for another time. But if we're talking about trying to build up our fund balance and do all these other things, I mean, if we're placing SROs at 6 elementary schools, I mean, I'm not saying that you should or shouldn't, but I'm just saying that would be quite an additional cost, I would think. And is that where we want to put those resources when we have good relationships with other departments? I mean, I don't know, but that would be quite an expense, I would think.
I think we're deviating from
We
the
are.
motion
Yes,
here,
we
so
are.
I
Yeah.
think there's maybe a discussion to see if it makes a future agenda, but I think we should vote on this.
Thank you for bringing us back there. I was hoping you would. Any other discussion on this motion with the SROs in Forest Lake? All right, seeing none, Member Clark?
Sure. Okay, Member Tyson is gone. Member Castle?
Aye.
Member Christensen?
Aye.
Member Corcoran?
Aye.
Member Haglund?
Aye.
Member Rebline?
Aye.
Member Antonsen votes aye. The ayes have it.
Okay, that brings us to item 9.13, bus lease agreement. Director Renberg, Welcome back.
Yes. Just want tonight to, the state of Minnesota allows us to lease buses. It's something that we've done for a very long time in Forest Lake area schools. We are looking at how we lease those buses. So typically we've had some very high years. So 3 of them, we lease over 20 buses each one of those years. So what we're trying to do is elongate that schedule and get our average age of fleet to be a little bit higher. We know that they have warranties over 5 years. And so to be able to do that, what we'd like to do is lease 14 2026 77 passenger buses. That is, we have a lease expiring that has more than that, but we would buy 10 of them so that we can again elongate that age of fleet. And then we would go ahead and lease the 14. And also, we would put 2 special education buses. Those buses are coming in the need of air conditioning, 2 our oldest buses that we'll be looking to get rid of in the near future here are our 4 air-conditioned buses, and so we're looking to replace those to make sure that we have those for students that need that accommodation. And so we would lease 2 of those. Those are also out a year, so we won't get them till 2027, but we need to approve that lease tonight in order to get the order in to be able to get them. And then we would look to again purchase the 10 out of the 23s for the 77 passengers, and then 4 of the special ed buses.
All right, thank you. Is there any questions before we move to a motion? All right, seeing no questions here, I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, Member Clerk.
Okay, Member Tyson is absent. Member Christensen?
Aye.
Member Antonsen votes aye. Member Castle?
Aye.
Member Rebbeline?
Aye.
Member Haglund?
Aye.
Member Corcoran?
Aye.
The ayes have it.
All right, the motion carries, which brings us to item number 10 here, review upcoming calendar dates. I will mention May 15th. There does seem to be a lot of interest in the potential community activity that evening. With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, we are adjourned.